Good evening, chap. As people pour in.
Everybody, it is quite the night, and I'm joined by one of my favorite people, Josiah. And it has been ages since I've gone live. I know you're more of a live guy, but it has been quite some time since I have, so it's very exciting, and it's quite the night to do it, Josiah.
Yeah, no, I try to do it once a week with some like other streamers, just like a kind of a diversity of content. But I don't do it nearly as regularly as a lot of others do. But it is fun, especially. I can't remember when the last time you and I went live, like together.
Oh my gosh,
It's been a
the
minute.
days. That's going retro. You have to be a long time show viewer of either of our shows to have witnessed those days.
Yeah, it's been in the ancient past. Someone's asking, why is Hulk Hogan at the RNC? Yeah, Luke, why is Hulk Hogan at the RNC?
I was gonna ask that too. I know, and I have to be. I see some people commenting on my volume's too low. Is what I'm
Too
hearing.
low? Let's hear it. Try
Turn that
now.
up, Cole.
I cranked it up on
Um,
my end.
oh, you didn't? Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. Hulk Hogan. It sort of shows you that the Democrats have all the good, all the good celebrities, because they have to get Kid Rock, who's just been off the rails for far too long now.
Luke, you
Having
mean, I'm sorry. Listen, you work out a lot. Are you telling me that you don't have ba da ba da da bang a dang diggy 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 in your.
I do a strict come through of any of my music to make sure that none of the artists are Kid Rock unhinged these days. No, I'm kidding. Sometimes good music comes from wild people, but I have to be honest. I've never been a Kid Rock person. If that's something you can even believe.
So what's funny is, I mean, he was pretty big in the late '90s and early 2000s, and then he had like this big hit with an artist named Sheryl Crow, and I hated it. It was called Picture. Like my late mother and all my sisters, they love that song, but that was like the beginning of the end as far as I was concerned of Kid Rock. And then just when you thought he couldn't get to a lower place, he turns out to be like about as deranged as you could possibly get politically. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
know.
hearing volume up a little bit more, so if we could do that on either end. Again, since we moved into this studio in DC, we haven't done the live setup, so things might be a little bit funky, but by the time the actual speech gets going, we should be good to go. From what I'm seeing, the video quality is crispy, so that's good to see.
I know.
But as you all know, we are awaiting Trump's speech. This is the first time that I'm aware of he'll be speaking publicly since the attempted assassination, and so that will be notable. Then in his laying out of his own agenda, I'm curious to see just like he's been desperately running away disingenuously from Project 2025, trying to convince Americans that he does not know the people behind Project 2025, despite him being closer to them than seemingly his own wife. And so will he use this as an opportunity to continue to distance himself was one thing I was curious to see. And please, mainstream media, don't do this whole this is the night Trump came off presidential. If he does try to pretend to be more moderate for one split second, we have to be honest about his record, and we are way too far in for him to reintroduce himself to America, Josiah.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. I think if Trump were smart, he would absolutely lean into the unity message, because mainstream media and certainly right-wing media, they've been pre-framing that, right? I mean, you were recently on Piers Morgan's show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, and you heard him lay that groundwork, saying, I wonder if Trump will be a changed man. You have centrist media, mainstream media, right-wing media telegraphing it for him. Please, for the love of God, Donald, this is your opportunity. And the question is whether or not he'll take it. If he was smart, he would. But to your point, the problem is this is where I'm nervous. So Trump obviously has sharp political instincts. I know you and I think he's quite stupid, and in many ways he is, but he has certain political instincts with respect to image politics. I mean, my God, look at how he reacted to the assassination attempt, right? Just the reflexive holding up at the fist. Powerful imagery, even if we recognize Trump as an authoritarian. This is kind of a similar opportunity for him to do a pivot. My fear is that he will take it, or at least will lean into some of it. And as you say, the media, not just right-wing media, but CNN, which, by the way, has been lobbing softball interviews to Trump supporters, to Don Jr., to Kimberly Guilfoyle, to Lara Trump, and they'll take it and run with it. That is my concern. I think that is a very real risk.
Is it, Josiah, the profound ambition from many of these mainstream folks, which I want to say, I know some people are just in the interest of being blindly critical, blindly rude about in any moment all other media, contrasting their space to other spaces. I don't see that, but instead pointing to the very real issues. So I do have a lot of respect for many of the individuals doing great work in mainstream media. But one issue we see is this bizarre need to frame any political moment as a normal political moment. And that comes mainly in what you call quote unquote liberal mainstream media. And so is it that makes them so badly want this many years in to treat many of these MAGA Republicans in a more normal way, to frame this as a more normal horse race political type moment? And is that why both of us know? We know if Trump does come out and in tone is a little bit softer, that'll be the headlines. That'll be the story, and we'll see potentially a shift in the tone in the coverage of Trump, which would seem irrational.
I don't even think he has to pivot even like that much. You know what's funny is I think if he just comes out and dials it down 10%, and like reduces the number of insults. So like he could make all the claims about how the justice system is rigged against him and the Justice Department and there's collusion and how he won the 2020 election, but it was stolen from. And as long as he drops crooked from crooked Joe Biden, I think the New York Times and CNN, I think they'll stand up and applaud. And I was thinking while you were talking, you and I both interviewed legendary journalist and former CNN reporter Don Lemon. And Don copped to it in conversations that we both had, that when he was working at CNN, he also had the sense that in order to avoid being tarred and feathered as, liberally biased or in the bag for Democrats, that his network felt inclined to compensate with false equivalence, to grade Republicans on a curve. That is an industry professional effectively admitting to that from the belly of the beast. And so I think it just comes down to, I think they know Trump is good for ratings. I think that they probably also suspect that he certainly has the momentum on his side to win the election, even though, of course, the election is still 4 months away. Nothing is set in stone. And then number 3, they just still chronically fear being referred to as the liberal media. So I think all of those things are in play.
Totally agree with you. I'm curious to hear, Josiah, and I am seeing a little bit more of if there's something you can do on your end to boost me slightly more. I don't know.
Luke? Uh-oh. Can you all still see Luke on my side? Because he vanished for me. No Luke? He'll be back. He'll be back. Technical issues. He'll be back. So we have a similar camera. What I suspect might have happened is his camera is still set at 4K. You have to drop it down to 1080p in order to like stream for any duration of time. Project 2025 got him. Stop it. Luke, buddy. Luke, I can hear you now, or I can hear something. We just can't see you. Lucas. It's 666, by the way. All right, folks, hang on one second. I'm going to bring up the screen.
Any country in the world. Sadly, as a nation, we have forgotten who is responsible for all the freedoms, the liberties, and the bounty that we enjoy. It has all come for you. Thank you. This evening, our nation is in trouble. We're divided politically, racially, economically, with millions of people seeking refuge and hope in our dry and thirsty land. You're the only one who can fix the complexity of the problems that we face today. We pray for President Trump that you would give him wisdom, strength, and a clear vision for the future of.
All right. Luke is working out his technical issues. The camera's back up. He's working on his audio, and then we'll pull him back on as soon as he gives me the thumbs up. Crazy stuff, folks. Crazy stuff. Yeah. So let's see here as we wait for Lucas. He'll give us a thumbs up in just a second. Let's see. There he is.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I knew it would happen. Okay. It was too good to be true that we just sort of plugged it and we're good
Plugged
to go.
and play, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's
what were
funny
we
is
talking
that
about?
I was gonna say, well, hang on, the video fidelity is still really good. I have you maxed out on my end with respect to volume, so your guys will probably have to crank you up on your side. Folks, how does Luke sound in his chat and mine? How does he sound? Go ahead, buddy.
I had someone telling me it sounds better now, so we'll keep going. I have now they'll monitor it and adjust, so we're good to go.
Gotcha.
What I was gonna ask was, it's interesting how I know the Republican National Convention is getting a lot of attention. We've been covering it, but in sort of the cultural discussion, and I think this is matching in the ratings actually, it's not as impactful as I would have thought. Are you getting that sense too, just from people you're talking to? I feel like in times gone by, conventions were so monumental and everyone was talking about it. Is that just me, or is that something you're experiencing as well?
So, I mean, I grew up in red states, so like, I mean, we got that a lot when the Republican National Convention, particularly in the Trump era. These things were seen as almost like music festivals in a way, in terms of the publicity they generate in the eyes on them. This does seem like a muted affair to me, but to be quite candid with you, Luke, I have seen actually very little of the RNC except for what I see on my Twitter feed, because quite frankly, this stuff is hard to watch. It's hard to watch in real time, given the media ecosystem, the very cynical, half-hearted rehabilitation of the Republican Party. Because let's be clear, compared to 2020 and even 2016, I think the Republicans are aware that, even if they'd never admit it, that Trump has presided over a series of defeats. And I think they recognize they have to tone down the crazy. And he's certainly run a much more disciplined campaign than he ever has. And so you see that cynical reduction, where even Marjorie Taylor Greene, did you see her when she was in the red dress, the speech that she gave the other day? That was actually the most hinged, and barely, I mean, you could see the cracks form, but that was the most hinged public outing I've seen
Did
of her.
you see the Jon Stewart response to the way that she was strangely, I don't know if it was a giggle or sort of just a whenever she would smile, there was pain in
Sure.
her trying her best, because you
Sure.
know she got coached. Please, Marjorie, America does not like how vitriolic and hateful you are. Sure, your base likes it, your super red district is fine with it, but Americans need, in a situation like this where you're trying to appeal to a broader electorate, they need you to tone down. And so then she would smile, and you would hear, if you listen closely,
Yeah, the
through her
noise.
smile, and it was something else.
No, yeah, it was. So when he first played the clip, I thought it was like audio feedback from the mic or something like that. But yeah, it was coming from like the howling abyss that is where her soul area should be. I mean, it really is. I don't know. So to the point is though, like for me, I'm not seeing as much of the RNC in my timeline, except for like certain clips from Aaron Rupar and ACEYN and stuff like that. So I don't know if I'm the one to gauge on this. It does seem, though, that tonight will be a big deal simply because of Trump's speech, right? Even more so than usual after the assassination attempt. So I would be interested to see what the ratings are after tonight.
Yeah. Quick request to any of you all watching on either channel, please click the like button.
Please.
At least back when I used to do this, that was supposedly helpful in putting these live streams on people's radars. We have quite the night ahead of us. If you're considering, where am I going to go to watch this speech? I can tell you there's no better place than where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have the two of the best in the business. Some would say.
I want to describe myself.
Some would say. No, I'm doing a Trump thing. Some would say two of the best in the business. No, and while we have time, because he's supposedly supposed to give his speech in about 20 minutes, almost to the minute. If there's anybody in chat, if you guys have like questions or comments or things like that you want us to address, we'd definitely be paying attention to that. Someone says there were more people watching Biden's NATO press conference than the RNS. That would be interesting. I heard something. It was like 25 million people watched President Biden's NATO press conference. About half as many as watched the debate, which is still pretty staggering when you consider NATO isn't exactly a sexy political issue, right? It's, foreign policy tends not to be of particular interest. I know. Listen, who doesn't get hot and bothered for AUKUS? Isn't that what the president constantly refers to? That he put AUKUS together?
Yeah, I think what I was going to ask was, separate from that, also what you've observed in the clips you have been watching about the speeches. The Marjorie one was notable because of how off-brand it was. And I love that. I know we pay attention more than most, so there is an element of this could work on some people if the only Marjorie Taylor Greene they see is the one that spoke. But she knows that we can also get video from her right outside of that speech in the hallway, just losing it at reporters. And so she's been a notable figure. I saw Kari Lake has been doing a lot of really notable interviews, just sort of as the RNC is going on since she's there. And did you see the one with the UK reporter where
yeah,
it ends in her just saying, "You're a sad human being"?
Yeah. So what's interesting is both Green and Lake, and I don't know if it was the same reporter, but they were British and they were both from the UK Times. So perhaps it was the same reporter, but both Marjorie Taylor Greene and Kari Lake ran into serious issues with British reporters and had meltdowns. I mean, watching Kari Lake spiral was actually more interesting to me because she's a media professional. She was a reporter for like 20 years. She obviously has a media savvy that Marjorie Taylor Greene simply doesn't, even though I think they're both insane. And like you said, she quickly, within the first minute of the Kari Lake interview, it started to spiral like you would not believe. And this is Mehdi Hassan commented about it on Twitter. He's like, it's hard for American politicians to run into the British press because their style of interviews are wildly adversarial by definition, which makes sense. Even their politics. You've seen debates in the House of Commons in the British Parliament when they address the prime minister, because they're prime minister questions, they regularly talk to their chief executive. It is like bristling with contempt. It's almost like, I wouldn't say a riot, but it's quite rowdy, And so here in America, I think a lot of particularly our Republican politicians are just not used to dealing with that.
I'm happy you ended it with especially these MAGA Republicans, I think even more specifically, because the George Stephanopoulos in a video that'll come out tomorrow on my channel where we talked about this interview, I noted that George Stephanopoulos sits down with Biden and spends the whole time, in part justified because it was what was on the minds of a lot of Americans, but also it was pretty stunning and jarring to observe, where the whole interview essentially is just, are you going to drop out? Why won't you drop out? Drop out. Are you mentally fit? People think you're not. Did you watch the debate? It was so terrible. Do you know how terrible it was? And Biden answered the questions. Wasn't a perfect interview, but did so in a way that was respectful to George Stephanopoulos. But then, my point is on that, by the way, is that you do see Democrats having these super hostile oppositional interviews with quote-unquote liberal mainstream media, however we define that. But man, MAGA politicians freak out when they're challenged in the slightest of ways. And I think it's because once you are able to characterize any oppositional media as fake news, then what you get used to for the outlets you say aren't fake news is just softball interviews. But Democrats don't say about bad stories about them, just, all those fake news. And so they're more willing to have their views confronted, whereas, goodness gracious, Republicans lose it. I sent you on Discord if you want to play this, just so people know what we're referencing. Maybe if you start it halfway through is when it starts to pick up, but so they can see this Kari Lake thing.
Yeah, I'll play it. And while I'm pulling it up, I will also say, too, it also, to me, illustrates a stark contrast between how Democratic politicians versus Republican politicians respond afterwards to the hostile interviews in the first place, right? Because when, I think you did a video about this. I know I did too. Don Jr. got a hard question from an MSNBC reporter at the RNC, and then he was whining about it hours later on Fox News. And when President Biden gets pushback from George Stephanopoulos, it may irritate him in the moment, which is fine, right? As long as he's not, threatening the press the way that Trump is, referring to them as the enemy of the people. It's perfectly fair for politicians to have a tense relationship with the press, but it is respectful, it is cordial. And Biden wasn't spending the next, few hours publicly ranting about George Stephanopoulos. Meanwhile, MAGA Republicans can't help but do that. So with that in mind, I do want to play this clip that Luke shared. You all let me know if you can or cannot hear it. I think you should be able to. This is Kari Lake at the Republican National Convention speaking to a British reporter from the UK Times.
You need your head examined. Applaud the fact that people like J.D. Vance and others, we've seen them, Amber Rose, she did a speech. People are coming over going, whoa, the media was lying and I believed it. And it's so irresponsible.
And you falsely claimed that Trump won in 2020. You called for the imprisonment of those who accepted Trump's defeat, including your own opponent in Arizona, Katie Hobbs. Why did you do that?
Called for the imprisonment of what?
Of opponents like Katie Hobbs who accepted Trump's defeat. Why did you falsely claim that Trump won in 2020?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and go through all of the evidence of what happened. Do you believe Joe Biden won 81 million votes? Do you think he's more popular? A guy who can't string two sentences together. You believe he's more popular than Barack Obama? I'm asking you, do you believe that he is the most popular president in the history?
So, and Luke, I mean, obviously we've seen this, it gets worse from here. But one thing that I just want to draw attention to is it's so annoying. She gave no opinion or indication about President Biden's popularity relative to Donald Trump or Barack Obama. This is just a classic and clumsy deflection. And the other funny thing is this idea that Joe Biden would have to be more popular than President Obama in order to get more votes than Obama. The fact of the matter is vote share usually increases with each subsequent election. And not only do we know that President Biden is obviously not as popular as Obama was, nor was Trump. Trump never cracked 50% approval rating during his presidency. And yet he had more votes in 2020 than Barack Obama. He had the second highest vote share other than President Biden himself. So it just stupid, dishonest talking points from Kari Lake. Anything you want to weigh in before we play some more of the clip?
Do they not understand the concept of voter turnout? Yes, you can have candidates who, in their own approval rating, or just in your intuitive sense of their popularity, their percentage of Americans that love or just love them, their beloved status, I guess is what I was looking for. You can understand that Biden and Trump weren't necessarily the most popular figures in American history. And also, one thing I don't think MAGA does is introspection, right? Maybe a part of why so many people went out to vote for Biden is because Trump was that divisive and that opposed. And then also sometimes you have, just as I mentioned, because of crises like the pandemic and division, you can have record turnout where both candidates got record-breaking vote counts. Biden just got more than Trump. And it's stunning that so boldly she would be able to say, you need to get your head examined. you don't think Trump won? And then the interviewer, it's not a crazy thing to ask when you make such a statement to go, oh, cool, so what evidence do you have? And Kari Lake goes, I can't go through that with you.
Yeah, like, what do you mean asking me for evidence? As you'll see here.
You have to have you got to have brain cells.
Okay, so you don't believe that Joe Biden won the election in 2020?
I believe the election was run fraudulently.
And you refuse to concede in 2022 as well, your own contest.
Well,
you filed
obviously you're sitting
lawsuits.
across the pond and you don't understand what's happened. And I'm not going to argue
You
about
were
it with
sued
somebody.
for defamation.
Yeah, because this is how corrupt the system is. I pointed out how they worked our elections.
You lied about a top Arizona election official. You defamed him. You falsely accused him of injecting 30,000 illegal votes into machines, intentionally misprinting ballots.
Yep.
Do you
It
stand
happened.
by those
Yes,
claims?
it happened.
Would you like to repeat them on air now?
It happened.
You
No,
think
you know what?
that he intentionally misprinted ballots?
If you
he
would-
sued you for this.
Yes, I know. I'm in the middle of it right now. It's lawfare.
I'm going to skip to just the last minute because I think it's so instructive. Right here is when it really unravels.
Your face. You're sitting over in England, in the UK, in a country that's being destroyed. In a country that's being destroyed.
I guess I'm just asking.
And I really don't-
What it says
you know
about
what,
the
this is the
Republican
last
Party,
question.
that they
This
need
is
to
the- this
lie,
is the
to
last
intimidate, to threaten, because you don't believe you can win at the ballot box. Why would you need to do that?
You are just a sad case of a human being, and I'm so sorry for you. I'm sorry that you bought into the propaganda. I hope that you'll look in the mirror and see that you've been following propaganda, and you don't understand what's happening.
So I'm
in this
guessing if you don't win in November, you won't concede. That's the rule that you're playing by now, is it?
You are. I actually think you need your head examined.
Certainly, someone in that conversation does.
Some examinations need to happen. I don't
Yes.
know if she correctly assessed which person. You know, what? Okay. Even if you're a MAGA person, how do you look at that interaction and think, yeah, Kari Lake
Yeah,
nailed it?
nailed it.
Because if you didn't concede last time, which she still hasn't, how is it not fair to ask, so you're not going to concede next time unless you win? And then that's the jumping off point, or that's the cause of Kari Lake saying, oh my gosh, you need your head examined. You're a sad excuse for a human being. How?
The real question is, how on earth is Kari Lake legally running for office when she's already the governor of Arizona? You know, I mean, like, Madam Governor, you know, how is it that you're running for the United States Senate when you assure us that you are, you know, the governor of Arizona? To me, that's honestly, I do believe that that is something that every reporter should lead with before anything else, even before who won the 2020 election presidentially. I think the first question is, you're running for the United States Senate, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, law forbids you from holding two offices like this simultaneously. You cannot be a United States Senator and the governor of Arizona. Would you like to announce your resignation as governor? Like, I mean, I think you should have fun with it. I do think that these sorts of things should be called out and mocked when and where they can. What do
Did
you
you,
no, please go ahead.
sorry, I need to jump in to say,
Yeah.
did you see Matt Gaetz's face? What
Somebody asked you about
happened?
that up in chat. Yeah.
Did you
What
see it?
happened, Luke? No, I did see it. Yeah.
Can you look up while I explain to the viewers so you
Yeah.
can show them on screen? My favorite one is that split screen where you see normal Matt Gaetz and makeup Matt Gaetz. So
Normal Matt Gaetz? I don't. Now that one,
normal,
I'm not.
just regular face. Uh, yeah. So we've been seeing this with a few people, but Matt Gaetz really took it to the next level, where for all their talk about how what I said in my coverage of this was men need to be men. Okay, stop with all this femininity crossing over into our manly men territory. You had Matt Gaetz lathering on a level of concealer for his speech that you rarely see, and then um, his eyebrows. I don't understand how
They're
it
on
goes so
fleek,
wrong.
Luke. I don't know if
That's
that's
what I said
still.
in my video. That's so
You
funny.
did? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that verbiage, if that slang is still vogue, but I say those brows are on fleek. And you have to remember, at the end of that speech, he had to run off to fight Batman. Okay, he's a busy man. All right, he had to give a speech at the RNC, and then he had to go fight Batman. Right, he was in supervillain mode. I mean, you got to think about it in many ways. If Project 2025 is a literal supervillain plot, which that's how I refer it to in my videos, you could almost look at the RNC as almost like the Legion of Doom meeting publicly. You know, some of the worst people in American politics congregated in one space, and perhaps the toxicity is just reflected on Matt Gaetz's face. I mean, what I really want to know is what Kevin McCarthy thought of Matt Gaetz's face. That's somebody should ask former Speaker McCarthy, like, hey, listen, well, I've got you here about that feud that you all had. What do you think of Matt's new look? You like it?
And
Don't like it?
I'm not the master on cosmetic things, but see, I told you. But a lot of people are saying that this is a Botox situation, and I just don't know how he could have gotten that done in between clashing with Kevin McCarthy on the floor and his speech.
Well, you know they didn't have to do any governing, right? I mean, that frees up, I feel like,
That's
a lot of time in the schedule when you don't actually, when you're the majority party in the House of Representatives, but you actually feel no compunction or compulsion to, you know, actually do your job, right? I feel like that increases your opportunity for Botox. Certainly fills in time in your schedule.
Do you want to pull up? I'm curious just to see what the coverage is. We can quickly yank it off if it's not interesting. But I'm curious what the buildup is right now to the Trump speech.
Sounds to me like they're chanting "fight."
Because of unity, right?
Right. That's how one shows unity.
Did
You
you
have
hear?
Eric there. I am curious, real quick. I wonder what he's saying.
Our country appreciates you. Our country misses you. And on November 5th, our country will re-elect you as the 47th President of the United States of America.
You know, one thing, Luke, in all seriousness, no matter what happens with the Democratic Party, which is obviously in a state of flux right now, I can't remember. I've forgotten, I suppose, the 2020 Democratic National Convention, which I don't even know if there was one or if it was digital or
It was
via Zoom.
virtual.
Yeah, I can't even remember. The last one that I really paid attention to was 2012, believe it or not. President Clinton gave an incredible speech renominating President Obama. And I just want to say, I hope that our DNC, no matter what, our Democratic National Convention is nothing like this, where I have enormous respect for President Biden, as I know you do too, but I hope it avoids the cultish vibes that are going on with the RNC.
Yeah, I was gonna say something. I mean, I get it. It's all about that candidate, but something is fundamentally strange about speaking in front of billions of people to one person, right? Where you direct it at them and it's just a split screen and you're going, "You are the greatest president. You are the most handsome man." You just something is a little icky about that, Josiah.
No, it really is. I mean, and what's interesting is, like I said, I don't have all these speeches memorized. I have no doubt that for previous conventions of either political party, the speeches were flattering towards the party's standard bearer. I have no doubt about that, right? And listen, I think it's fine to respect and to applaud political leaders and to highlight their accomplishments. But I guess what I'm saying is that I am more sensitive now than ever to how the GOP has just devolved into this authoritarian cult of personality. That if I see anything like that on the DNC, which I doubt we will, just because I think the Democratic Party, flaws and all, is just it's a wildly different organism. But I think if that were to ever happen, I would find it really gross. Just again, this idea of not just respecting a politician, but venerating them like a god. It's
Mm.
really weird.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm seeing on some of the coverage JD Vance, and he was who I expected Trump to pick for some reason. It's interesting how Trump needs someone who's not able to take away the spotlight, and that
Sure.
was a big part of the choosing of the top three. Doug Burgum. I mean, I cover this every day, and you can barely hold his name in your mind. Who was the governor of Dakota? Um,
Christy Nolan.
Christy.
Oh, dude, you're talking about Doug Burgum. I see what you did there. I was like, wait, yeah, North and South Dakota there, both of them, yeah.
Yeah, and then who else was the top three? I
Yeah,
know.
JD
Oh,
Vance, Marco
Rubio.
Rubio, and yeah, Doug
Hmm.
Burgum.
Yeah, Ruby. Because between those three, I guess you could have imagined Burgum, but not Rubio. That seems certain to me. And so
No, there
JD
was the
Vance.
residential concerns. I was just gonna say, I think the contempt there too. Like, I am convinced that Rubio, Cruz, and Lindsey Graham still occupy kind of a dark place in Donald Trump's heart, where
Mm,
he's willing to use them politically because they bent the knee. But you see it in interactions. I recall it was about 6 months ago. You did a video with Lindsey Graham in it, and Trump was in it too. And just you see like the visible thing where he's like, "Yeah, you can get close. Don't get too close." Like there, Trump seems to have contempt for his former political opponents who have since bent the knee. And so that for me was the biggest reason why I could never imagine it ever being Rubio.
And do you think for him it's one category if you ever said something negative and he can bear that because everyone has? Uh, and then one category if you publicly opposed him in a political scenario where, for example, Rubio face to face with him on a debate stage, Lindsey Graham also running against him. I forget that Lindsey Graham ran in that 2016
Yeah, he did.
primary. He did,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
He was
And
like 17th out of 16.
oh man,
Yeah.
incredible stuff. And so I agree with you. You see you'll pretend like something else is going on, but you'll see that contempt, that darkness you're talking about. But then, I mean, almost anyone who ever associates with Trump at some point in their life correctly assess Trump to be low character, and then you go further down the line, more severe characterizations from there. And JD Vance is interesting in the wake of the horrific assassination attempt. You of course had, and this really flies in the face now of much of the information coming out about the background of the shooter, but you had MAGA jump into action, unfortunately trying to divide further and say that this is proof that the left is just so evil, and the Democrats, even though this was a registered Republican who I walked through on today's show, was really looking for some, it seems, event to make himself famous. He was searching out Biden events, and then the Trump one was the closest to him, but it was going to be just the beginning for him. So, despite that information coming out, you saw MAGA jump into action, trying to exploit this moment to characterize the left as evil, and they are the ones who try to kill Trump. And super, super unfortunate, but I completely blanked on my point, Josiah. So if you want to jump and respond.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, no. So listen, I mean, I think to your point about, public opposition, I think the only thing that distinguishes J.D. Vance is that J.D. Vance never ran against him for president. That's it. That's the one, I think, saving grace, because he also, as you say, publicly insulted Trump. And by insult, I do mean describe him accurately. But the one difference is, in addition to being an enormously boring personality, he never tried to get the same thing that Trump is trying to get, which is the presidency of the United States. I will say it looks like the former First Lady has arrived, so I think Trump's about to go on.
Cherish. A story of a life dedicated to dreaming big. A story about giving back to the people in his beloved city. But most of all, this is a story about putting his country first. And it's a story best told in pictures. Young and confident, Donald Trump wasn't afraid to think big and build even bigger.
Will Jeffrey Epstein appear in any of these pictures, I wonder? Food for thought.
That greeted visitors from around the world. But he wasn't just an American entrepreneur. He became a folk hero. Celebrities and sports stars wanted to be seen with him. Politicians sought his approval. And New Yorkers just loved him. And he loved them back. And he gave back. Just one example. Saving the Woolman skating rink.
The Woolman skating rink in Central Park is open again. The city spent nearly 6 years and $12 million trying to fix it. And then to the rescue, developer Donald Trump. As Tracy Egan tells us now, he accomplished in 3.5 months what the city couldn't do in 6 years.
Donald, you performed a great public service.
There was no denying that Donald Trump was the toast of the town. But he was also something even more important, a patriotic American. And like many others, he was becoming increasingly troubled by the direction of our country.
Because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it, I think I'd be inclined. I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people.
I should say, Luke, that as a reminder, he says he doesn't go in to lose, but Donald Trump won in 2016 by virtue of the Electoral College. He lost in 2018, the midterm elections, lost the 2022 presidential re-election. He lost the 2021 Senate runoffs. He lost the 2022 midterms and then the 2023 off-year elections. Did I miss anything?
Fake news.
Behind, too large. And so, in Donald Trump fashion, he announced he was running for president, in it to win. And he did.
From his first day in office, the Washington politicians learned something about President Trump. He's not afraid to fight for what he believes in. They call that having the courage of your convictions. First up, the Trump
34 convictions, right?
for working families. Unfortunately, today, taxes are up and incomes down. The politicians just never learn. Next for President Trump, secure our border. Check. Miles and miles of wall built. ISIS and other terrorists deterred. But now, we have the Barney Fife of border security, leading to 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl coming in. Brutal migrant crime spreading across America. And ISIS, now here. President Trump promised he'd keep America out of endless wars. Welcome words to the families of our young men and women who serve. and another promise kept. He started by strengthening our military, then traveled the world, meeting with our allies, and even with our main adversaries, just so they understood that America's strength and resolve was back. Because that's what a strong commander-in-chief does. And it led to a stable world at peace and our troops safe. Today, a different story. Our enemies smelled weakness, then set the world on fire. Putin saw it, then invaded Ukraine. Hamas saw it, then started a war in the Middle East. There's one more thing we've learned about President Trump. He believes so strongly in America, so optimistic for our possibilities, and so committed to fighting to once again make our country great, that there is nothing that is going to stop him.
Okay, real quick, Luke, I just want to say, and I'm sure you did too, a couple of things we need to point out. It was Donald Trump that killed the bipartisan, relatively conservative border bill. More U.S. troops died under Donald Trump than have ever died under President Biden. We are in fewer wars under President Biden than Donald Trump because Biden was the one to get us out of Afghanistan. So just anything else before? I mean, obviously Trump's not on stage yet, but is there anything about that I didn't mention that you want to address or point out?
Yeah, I was preparing. I do have to be honest, and it looks like we're getting very close, but I'm going to be keeping a ticker. I did a poll of how many lies people think, and 74% in my chat think 50 plus lies will be told. So I'll be keeping track, and we'll try to do a quick sort of CNN Daniel Dale style fact check at the end, Josiah.
Yeah, I just, again, I'll be paying attention. I don't care to hear Kid Rock. I doubt you do either. So just real quick, while you're tabulating those lies that he says, also, did you notice the distinct lack of unity in that compilation, in that video message?
Your heart wasn't warmed? Or what are you talking about?
No, I mean, just not even a little bit. Not even, hey, I'm about to do a pun. I'm about to drop a pun on you. It wasn't even lukewarm, okay? Here he is, casting aspersions on immigrants, peddling this notion that we're being invaded. Whatever situation you think exists at the southern border, there are obvious issues, but it is wildly inappropriate and inaccurate to refer to it as an invasion. And also saying that ISIS is here. What the hell are they talking about?
I want to see, we could stop it quickly. I want to see so briefly what's happening right now.
Sure.
I like ACDC and ZZ Top. We'll see this beasties and the kings of rock. Skinner, Seeger, lit the corn, the Stones. David Allen, and No Show Jones. Yeah.
Is it worth it, Luke? Was it worth it? No, hell no.
Wow. Think about that. The amount of attention and sort of the pomp and circumstance surrounding the entering onto the stage of Trump after the last week, and this is the intro he gets. Goodness.
I know. He's probably thinking, there's a Rock? What do you mean a Rock is introducing me? Is it The Rock? Is it Dwayne Johnson? No, sir. Mr. President, it's Kid Rock. Oh. Oh, gosh. Somebody in chat had a really good question for you, Luke. It's this one here. Luke, did you know US spells... did you know that US spells us?
I was thinking, Josiah, actually, while you were reading that, I was thinking, I actually told someone this, and they said they've never heard this before. If you were on a boat and it was an electric boat, then, and actually a lot more electric boats recently, there could be sharks in the water, and then your decision would be boat or electrocution. A lot of electrocutions lately. I don't know if you heard about that.
But there aren't
This is
any
what happens
whales.
in Biden's America, okay? So many sharks are attacking us in Biden's America.
But there aren't any whales, Luke. There may be sharks, but there are no whales because
of
the windmills.
The windmill that cause all the whales have died of cancer because of the windmills.
The cognitively fit candidate, according to many. Somebody pointed this out too. How could ISIS be here if Trump beat ISIS? Isn't that what he's talking about all the time? Didn't he say, I defeated ISIS in 6 weeks. The generals could never do it. I did it single-handedly by myself. I'm such a big boy.
One thing that I hear Trump say so often that is truly a bizarre statement is we would have had blank finished in a couple of weeks if we had won, right? We would have had the border wall just in a few weeks if we had won the election.
It was
We
always
would
just
have
a few weeks.
One time I think he just said we would have had Iran figured out in we had a plan coming together. Iran was going to be figured out in just a few weeks if I had taken over in January 2025. It's real convenient. Afghanistan, I said that strangely. Afghanistan, he has said that if he had taken over a second term, that would have gone perfectly just a few weeks after. Why did he schedule all of his perfect world peace plans to be implemented right after he could potentially lose power?
That is really interesting. Very curious on the timing there, Mr. President. Let's see. That's Enter the Sandman by Metallica, or some like cover version of it. What
Who's
is
introducing?
This? I don't know.
I think it's Dana White. Didn't he slap his wife in public?
He did on camera. Yes, he
just
did.
The party of family values, just that.
100%. But remember, family values, much like law and order, those are things they demand of other people. Republican politicians, on the other hand, they are free to violate laws, to commit spousal abuse. You have to remember, they get graded by different rules.
I'm seeing Melania. That's a rare sight to see. She's been missing.
Yeah, I think they lied to her. I think somebody told her, like, hey, Melania, do you want to go out for dinner or something like that? And she's like, yeah, sure. And then the car just took her here. She's like, damn it.
Oh, wait.
Damn it. This isn't a TGI Fridays. Gosh. Probably the condition was that she doesn't actually have to talk to him. Oh, here he is. Here we go. Dana White.
Here we go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dana White. I am the CEO and president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Ew.
So 2 weeks ago, I got a call from President Trump asking me if I'd be willing to speak tonight. As usual, there was no pressure, no demands. He asked me as a friend, and of course I said yes. Then, after I accepted his offer, he sent me a text message, and I just want to read to you a little piece of what President Trump wrote to me. Dana, I'm so honored that you will be doing the introduction at the National Republican Convention. Think of it as the biggest fight you ever had, a fight for our country and even the world. I only wish you didn't have to interrupt your family trip, but I hope they understand they love you and they know how important this is. Now think about this. This man's running for president of the United States. He's fighting for the future of this country, and he's concerned about interrupting my family trip. That's the President Trump that I know, a man who truly cares about people. The mainstream media likes to push the narrative that he doesn't care about anyone but himself. I absolutely know that's not the truth, because I've been friends with this guy for 25 years. And for the people who know me, they'll know this is true. I just want to make something very clear. Nobody in the Trump campaign has ever told me what to say. Nobody tells me what to say, and I'm nobody's puppet.
Overcompensation.
And I'm telling you what I know. And I know President Trump. I know President Trump is a fighter. I've been saying this since 2015. Now look at what's happened over the last 10 years. We have all seen it with our own eyes. I'm in the tough guy business, and this man is the toughest, most resilient human being that I've ever met in my life. The higher the stakes, the harder he fights, and this guy never, ever gives up. So what's at stake here? The answer is in President Trump's text, and I quote, "A fight for our country." I know why he's running for president again. Why else would he put himself through everything he's dealt with just to get back here? We all know he doesn't need this. This guy's got a great life, he has a beautiful family, and he has achieved everything that you could possibly achieve in life. And he's willing to risk it all because he loves this country. And I know he wants what's best for the American people, all American people. I know he's running for president to save our American dream. I'm living the American dream, and I know the American dream is very real. Whether you were born in this country or came here from someplace else, this is the last real land of opportunity. President Reagan once said, "Government's first duty is to protect the people, not run their lives." And if you're buried in government red tape, how will you ever start your own business? If you're struggling to pay your bills, how can you ever afford to start a family? And if you don't feel safe in your own town, why would you ever buy a house? I know that President Trump is fighting to save the American dream, and that's what's at stake in this election. We are choosing who we want to lead us in this fight. I know President Trump is a proven leader, a fearless leader, and this country was in a much better place when he was in the Oval Office. In my mind, the choice is clear. But this election, we all get to choose. I know I'm going to choose strength and security. I know I'm going to choose opportunity and prosperity. I know I'm going to choose real American leadership and a real American badass. And I'm not telling you what choice to make, and I'm not telling you what to think. I'm telling you what I know. I know America needs a strong leader, and the world needs a strong America. I know Donald J. Trump is the best choice for President of the United States. My fellow Americans, it is my honor to introduce the 45th and soon-to-be 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
So while we wait for Trump to show up, what'd you think? That was actually from what little I've heard of the other speech givers, that was one of the more effectively delivered ones. Luke, you're muted. Uh-oh. Lucas, can you hear me? You're not muted on my end. Like I don't have you muted, but
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. Sing it. God bless the
Oh my God.
Detroit,
Jesus.
Houston, and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless
There we go. It looks like they have an effigy or tribute to the firefighter who was killed at the Trump rally. Luke is still working on his audio issues. He'll be back as soon as he can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Wow. And thank you, Dana. Thank you, Kid Rock, sometimes referred to as Bob. And thank you, Lee, right from the beginning. Thank you very much. What a talent. What a beautiful, beautiful song. Thank you. Friends, delegates, and fellow citizens, I stand before you this evening with a message of confidence, strength, and hope. 4 months from now, we will have an incredible victory, and we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. Together, we will launch a new era of safety, prosperity, and freedom for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. The discord and division in our society must be healed. We must heal it quickly. As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning for half of America. So tonight, with faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we will do it right. We're going to do it right. Let me begin this evening by expressing my gratitude to the American people for your outpouring of love and support following the assassination attempt at my rally on Saturday. As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened, and you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell. It was a warm, beautiful day in the early evening in Butler Township in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Music was loudly playing, and the campaign was doing really well. I went to the stage, and the crowd was cheering wildly. Everybody was happy. I began speaking very strongly, powerfully, and happily, because I was discussing the great job my administration did on immigration at the southern border. We were very proud of it. Behind me and to the right was a large screen that was displaying a chart of border crossings under my leadership. The numbers were absolutely amazing. In order to see the chart, I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage, and they really did. They rushed to the stage. These are great people at great risk, I will tell you, and pounced on top of me so that I would be protected. There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that. The amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would not be here tonight. We would not be together. The most incredible aspect of what took place on that terrible evening in the fading sun was actually seen later. In almost all cases, as you probably know, and when even a single bullet is fired, just a single bullet, and we had many bullets that were being fired, crowds run for the exits or stampede, but not in this case. It's very unusual. This massive crowd of tens of thousands of people stood by and didn't move an inch. In fact, many of them bravely but automatically stood up looking for where the sniper would be. They knew immediately it was a sniper. And then began pointing at him. You can see that if you look at the group behind me. That was just a small group compared to what was in front. Nobody ran, and by not stampeding, many lives were saved. But that isn't the reason that they didn't move. The reason is that they knew I was in very serious trouble. They saw it. They saw me go down. They saw the blood and thought, actually, most did, that I was dead. They knew it was a shot to the head. They saw the blood. And there's an interesting statistic. The ears are the bloodiest part. If something happens with the ears, they bleed more than any other part of the body. For whatever reason, the doctors told me that. I said, why is there so much blood? He said, it's the ears. They bleed more. So we learned something, but they just, this beautiful crowd, they didn't want to leave me. They knew I was in trouble. They didn't want to leave me. And you can see that love written all over their faces. Incredible people. They're incredible people. Bullets were flying over us, yet I felt serene. But now the Secret Service agents were putting themselves in peril. They were in very dangerous territory. Bullets were flying right over them, missing them by a very small amount of inches. And then it all stopped. Our Secret Service sniper, from a much greater distance and with only one bullet used, took the assassin's life, took him out. I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here. Yeah. Thank you. But I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God. In watching the reports over the last few days, many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was. When I rose surrounded by Secret Service, the crowd was confused because they thought I was dead, and there was great, great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. They didn't know I was looking out. They thought it was over. But I could see it, and I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight." Thank you. Once my clenched fist went up, and it was high into the air. You've all seen that. The crowd realized I was okay and roared with pride for our country like no crowd I have ever heard before. Never heard anything like it. For the rest of my life, I will be grateful for the love shown by that giant audience of patriots that stood bravely on that fateful evening in Pennsylvania. Tragically, the shooter claimed the life of one of our fellow Americans, Kari Comparator. Unbelievable person, everybody tells me. Unbelievable. And seriously wounded, two other great warriors. Spoke to them today. David Dutch and James Copenhaver. Two great people. I also spoke to all three families of these tremendous people. Our love and prayers are with them and always will be. We're never going to forget them. They came for a great rally. They were serious Trumpsters, I want to tell you. They were serious Trumpsters and still are. But Corey, unfortunately, we have to use the past tense. He was incredible. He was a highly respected former fire chief, respected by everybody. Was accompanied by his wife, Helen, incredible woman. I spoke to her today, devastated, and 2 precious daughters. He lost his life selflessly acting as a human shield to protect them from flying bullets. He went right over the top of them and was hit. What a fine man he was. I want to thank the fire department and the family for sending his helmet, his outfit, and it was just something, and they're going to do something very special when they get it. But we did something which cannot match what happened, not even close. But I am very proud to say that over the past few days, we've raised $6.3 million for the families of David, James, and Corey, including from a friend of mine, just called up. He sent me a check right here. I just got it. $1 million from Dan Newland. Thank you, Dan. And again, when speaking to the family, I told them, I said, well, I'm going to be sending you a lot of money, but it can't compensate. They all said the same thing. You're right, sir. We appreciate so much what you're doing, but nothing can take the place in the case of Corey. And the other 2, by the way, they were very, very seriously injured, but now they're doing very well. They're going to be okay. They're going to be doing very well. They're warriors. So now I ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of our friend Corey. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for others. This is the spirit that forged America in her darkest hours, and this is the love that will lead America back to the summit of human achievement and greatness. This is what we need. Despite such a heinous attack, we unite this evening more determined than ever. I am more determined than ever, and so are you. So is everybody in this room. Thank you very much. Our resolve is unbroken and our purpose is unchanged to deliver a government that serves the American people better than ever before. Nothing will stop me in this mission because our vision is righteous and our cause is pure. No matter what obstacle comes our way, we will not break, we will not bend, we will not back down, and I will never stop fighting for you, your family, and our magnificent country. Never. And everything I have to give with all of the energy and fight in my heart and soul, I pledge to our nation tonight. Thank you very much. I pledge that to our nation. We're going to turn our nation around, and we're going to do it very quickly. Thank you. This election should be about the issues facing our country and how to make America successful, safe, free, and great again. In an age when our politics too often divide us, now is the time to remember that we are all fellow citizens. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we must not criminalize dissent or demonize political disagreement, which is what's been happening in our country lately at a level that nobody has ever seen before. In that spirit, the Democrat Party should immediately stop weaponizing the justice system and labeling their political opponent as an enemy of democracy. Especially since that is not true. In fact, I am the one saving democracy for the people of our country. And very big news, as you probably just read, on Monday a major ruling was handed down from a highly respected federal judge in Florida, Eileen Cannon, finding that the prosecutor and the fake documents case against me were totally unconstitutional, and the entire case was thrown out of court. With all of that publicity, thrown out of court. If Democrats want to unify our country, they should drop these partisan witch hunts, which I have been going through for approximately 8 years. And they should do that without delay and allow an election to proceed that is worthy of our people. We're going to win it anyway, but worthy of our people. On this journey, I am deeply honored to be joined by my amazing wife, Melania. And Melania, thank you very much. You also did something really beautiful, a letter to America calling for national unity, and it really took the Republican Party by surprise. I will tell you, it was beautiful. In fact, some very serious people said that we should take that letter and put it as part of the Republican platform. That would be an honor, wouldn't it? Right, Mr. Congressman? But it captivated so many, so I also want to thank my entire family for being here. Don, Kimberly, Ivanka and Jared, Eric and Lara, Tiffany and Michael, Barron. We love our Barron. And of course, my 10 wonderful grandchildren. You saw a few of them up there on my lap before. And how good was Dana? Was Dana good? I mean, was he good? He was on probably the only vacation he's had in about, maybe ever, because he works, but about 10 years with his wife, very far away. I won't tell you where, but very, very far away, beautiful place. And my people called, and he said, I won't be able to do it. This is many, many years. I promised my wife I can't do it. And they came in, they said, Dana won't be able to do it, because he was my first, second, and third choice. I said, well, that's too bad, but I understand he's away, and it's good. It's good for him. And that was it. About 30 minutes later, she came back in, sir, Dana just called. He's going to do it. And his wife, she said, you can't turn him down. You just can't do it. You have to go. That's a good wife. So he got on a plane. He got here a little while ago. Now he's going to get on the plane in a little while, and he's going to go back home to his wife. But they're great, and I just want to thank her and him and their whole family, because that's not easy. And Kid Rock, same thing. Called, he said, I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part, because, you know, Kid does his great song, big, big monster song. I had no idea. You know, he became a friend of mine over the last 10 years. And he's amazing. Everyone loves him. I didn't even know how big he was. You know, he has rallies, 35, 40,000 people he gets every time he goes out. I think he's making so much money, he doesn't know what the hell to do with it. You want to know? And then we have my other friend, and I've known him so long, and we took that song, and it was a big success, but we made that. I saw a chart of great songs to America. That was #1 on the chart recently, #1. So that's Lee Greenwood, a very special, beautiful person. He's a beautiful man. But they all wanted to be here. They called. And how about the Hulkster? How good was he? Is he up? Where is he? Boy, oh boy. You know, they may call that entertainment. I know about entertainment, but when he used to lift a 350-pound man over his shoulders and then bench press him 2 rows into the audience, I say, maybe entertainment, but he is one strong son of a gun. I will tell you, I watched it many times. There aren't a lot of entertainers that can do that, right? You were fantastic. Thank you very much. Followed by Eric. What was that all about? Boy, that was good. I didn't want to really come up here. But he was so great, and he's such a good young man. He went through a lot of trouble, and Don last night was incredible. He went through so much trouble. They got subpoenaed more than any people probably in the history of the United States. Every week they get another subpoena from the Democrats, crazy Nancy Pelosi, the whole thing, just boom, boom, boom. They've got to stop that because they're destroying our country. We have to work on making America great again, not on beating people. And we won. We beat them in all. We beat them on the impeachments. We beat them on indictments. We beat them. But the time that you have to spend, if they would devote that genius to helping our country, we'd have a much stronger and better country. And Jason, the biggest star in country music. Jason, thank you for being here. Jason, thank you very much. Jason Aldean, he's good. I like his wife even better, by the way. She's here. Thank you, Jason. But I'm thrilled to have a new friend and partner fighting by my side. The next Vice President of the United States, the current Senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance, and his incredible wife, Usha. He's going to be a great Vice President. He's going to be great. He'll be with this country and with this movement, greatest movement in the history of our country, Make America Great Again. When they criticize it, they say, we're going to try and stop MAGA. I said, MAGA is making America great again. What are you going to stop? There's nothing to stop. Then they say, oh, that's right. It's very tough to fight it. And all of the people that did try and fight it have failed. But he's going to be with us for a long time, and it was an honor to select him. Great, great student at Yale. His wife was a great student at Yale. They met at Yale. These are two smart people. So, J.D., you're going to be doing this for a long time. Enjoy the ride. And a very special thank you to the extraordinary people of Milwaukee, and the great state of... Oh, there they are. There they are. You are so easy to spot. And Green Bay's going to have a good team this year, right? They're going to have a good team. They're going to have a good team. Most of the audience doesn't like it, but it's true. You're going to have a very good team this year. And by the way, Wisconsin, we are spending over $250 million here creating jobs and other economic development all over the place. So I hope you will remember this in November and give us your vote. I am trying to buy your vote. I'll be honest about that. And I promise we will make Wisconsin great again. We're going to make it. Mr. Governor, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm here tonight to lay out a vision for the whole nation, to every citizen, whether you're a young or old man or woman, Democrat, Republican, or independent, black or white, Asian or Hispanic. I extend to you a hand of loyalty and of friendship. Together we will lead America to new heights of greatness like the world has never seen before. We were right there in the first term. We got hit with COVID. We did a great job. Nobody knew what it was, but nobody's ever seen an economy pre-COVID. And then we handed over a stock market that was substantially higher than just prior to COVID. Coming in, did a great job. Never got credit for that. We got credit for the war and defeating ISIS and so many things, the great economy, the biggest tax cuts ever, the biggest regulation cuts ever, the creation of Space Force, the rebuilding of our military. We did so much. We did so much. Right to try. Right to try is a big deal. We got right to try. They were trying to get that for 52 years. Somebody's terminally ill. And hopefully there's nobody in this audience, but it does happen a lot. They're terminally ill and they can't use our new space-age drugs and other things that we are way ahead. We have the greatest doctors in the world, the greatest laboratories in the world, and you can't do it. They've been trying to get that approved for 52 years. Wasn't that easy? The insurance companies didn't want to do it. They didn't want the risk. The labs didn't want to do it because if it didn't work, people are pretty far down the line toward death. They didn't want to do it. The doctors didn't want to have it on their records, so I got everybody into an office. 52 years they tried. Sounds simple, but it's not. And I got them to agree that somebody that needs it will, instead of going to Asia, Europe, or someplace, or if you have no money going home and dying, just die. We got them to sign an agreement, agree to it, where they're not going to sue anybody. They're going to get all of this stuff. They're going to get it really fast. And what's happened is we're saving thousands and thousands of lives. It's incredible. Right to try. It's a great feeling. Under our leadership, the United States will be respected again. No nation will question our power. No enemy will doubt our might. Our borders will be totally secure. Our economy will soar. We will return law and order to our streets, patriotism to our schools, and importantly, we will restore peace, stability, and harmony all throughout the world. But to achieve this future, we must first rescue our nation from failed and even incompetent leadership. We have totally incompetent leadership. This will be the most important election in the history of our country. Under the current administration, we are indeed a nation in decline. We have an inflation crisis that is making life unaffordable, ravaging the incomes of working and low-income families, and crushing, just simply crushing our people like never before. They've never seen anything like it. We also have an illegal immigration crisis, and it's taking place right now as we sit here in this beautiful arena. It's a massive invasion at our southern border that has spread misery, crime, poverty, disease, and destruction to communities all across our land. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Then there's an international crisis, the likes of which the world has seldom been part of. Nobody can believe what's happening. War is now raging in Europe and the Middle East. A growing specter of conflict hangs over Taiwan, Korea, the Philippines, and all of Asia. And our planet is teetering on the edge of World War III. And this will be a war like no other war because of weaponry. The weapons are no longer army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. These weapons are obliteration. It's time for a change. This administration can't come close to solving the problems. We're dealing with very tough, very fierce people. They're fierce people. And we don't have fierce people. We have people that are a lot less than fierce, except when it comes to cheating on elections and a couple of other things. Then they're fierce. Then they're fierce. So tonight, I make this pledge to the great people of America. I will end the devastating inflation crisis immediately, bring down interest rates, and lower the cost of energy. We will drill, baby, drill. Can you believe what they're doing? But by doing that, we will lead a large-scale decline in prices. Prices will start to come down. Energy raised it. They took our energy policies and destroyed them. Then they immediately went back to them, but by that time, so much was lost. But we will do it at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And we'll end lots of different things. We'll start paying off debt and start lowering taxes even further. We gave you the largest tax cut. We'll do it more. You know, people don't realize I brought taxes way down, way down, and yet we took in more revenues the following year than we did when the tax rate was much higher. Most people said, how did you do that? Because it was incentive. Everybody was coming to the country. They were bringing back billions and billions of dollars into our country. The companies made it impossible to bring it back. The tax rate was too high, and the legal complications were far too great. I changed both of them, and hundreds of billions of dollars by Apple and so many other companies were brought back into our nation, and we had an economy the likes of which no nation had ever seen. China, we were beating them at levels that were incredible. And they know it. They know it. We'll do it again, but we'll do it even better. I will end the illegal immigration crisis by closing our border and finishing the wall, most of which I've already built. On the wall, we were dealing with a very difficult Congress. And I said, oh, that's okay. We won't go to Congress. I call it an invasion. We gave our military almost $800 billion. I said, I'm going to take a little of that money because this is an invasion. And we built, most of the wall is already built. And we built it through using the funds because what's better than that? We have to stop the invasion into our country that's killing hundreds of thousands of people a year. We're not going to let that happen. I will end every single international crisis that the current administration has created, including the horrible war with Russia and Ukraine, which would have never happened if I was president, and the war caused by the attack on Israel, which would have never happened if I was president. Iran was broke. Iran had no money. Now Iran has $250 billion. They made it all over the last 2.5 years. They were broke. I watched the other day on a show called Deface the Nation. Has anyone seen it? And they had a congressman who was a Democrat say, well, whether you like him or not, Iran was broke dealing with Trump. I told China and other countries, if you buy from Iran, we will not let you do any business in this country, and we will put tariffs on every product you do send in of 100% or more. And they said to me, well, I think that's about it. They weren't going to buy any oil. And they were ready to make a deal. Iran was going to make a deal with us. And then we had that horrible, horrible result that we'll never let happen again. The election result, we're never going to let that happen again. They used COVID to cheat. We're never going to let it happen again. And they took off all the sanctions and they did everything possible for Iran. And now Iran is very close to having a nuclear weapon, which would have never happened. This is a shame what this administration, the damage that this administration has done. And I say it often, if you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States, think of it, the 10 worst, added them up, they will not have done the damage that Biden has done. Only going to use the term once. Biden. I'm not going to use the name anymore, just one time. The damage that he's done to this country is unthinkable. It's unthinkable. Together we will restore vision, strength, competence, and we're going to have a thing called common sense making most of our decisions, actually. It's all common sense. Just a few short years ago, under my presidency, we had the most secure border and best economy in the history of our country, in the history of the world. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world. We had never done anything like it. We were beating every country, including China, by leaps and bounds. Nobody had seen anything like it. We had no inflation, soaring incomes were going. Nobody can believe it. You can't believe what happened 4 years ago is happening now in reverse. And the world was at peace. Inflation has been a killer for our country. No matter what you make it doesn't matter because inflation is eating you alive. People that were putting away money, they were making great wages, the highest they've ever made, but they were putting away a lot of money. Now they are just being destroyed. They're not putting away anything. They're barely living. They're going into savings accounts. They're taking out their money to live because of inflation. Inflation, remember, it's called a country buster. You can go back to Germany from 100 years ago. You can go back to any country that suffered great inflation. We've suffered the worst inflation we've ever had. But go back and see what's happened to those countries. We've had the worst inflation we've ever had under this person. But in less than 4 years, our opponents have turned incredible success into unparalleled tragedy and failure. It's been a tremendous failure. Today, our cities are flooded with illegal aliens. Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force and their jobs are taken. And by the way, you know who's taking the jobs that are created? 107% of those jobs are taken by illegal aliens. And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into our country? The black population and the Hispanic population, because they're taking the jobs from our black population, our Hispanic population, and they're also taking them from unions. The unions are suffering because of it. Thank you. Thank you. I like you too. Thank you very much. Inflation has wiped out the life savings of our citizens and forced the middle class into a state of depression and despair. That's what it is. It's despair and depression. We cannot and will not let this continue. Less than 4 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. We're going to be a great nation again. Thank you. With proper leadership, every disaster we are now enduring will be fixed, and it will be fixed very, very quickly. So tonight, whether you've supported me in the past or not, I hope you will support me in the future, because I will bring back the American dream. That's what we're going to do. You don't even hear about the American dream anymore. With great humility, I am asking you to be excited about the future of our country. Be excited. Be excited. And by the way, the news reports, look at all of those big networks. Look at them. They're all here. But every one of them has said this could be the most organized, best run, and most enthusiastic convention of either party that they've ever seen. Every single one. And it's true. It's true. And there's love in the room. There's great love in the room. So I better finish strong. Otherwise, we'll blow it. And we can't let that happen. Now, this was great. All of the great people that spoke, and everybody hit a home run. I mean, there's not one that I can think of where I said, oh, gee, that wasn't great. Every single person. I refuse to be the only one. Don't do that to me. They're already getting ready. See, I gave them an idea. Now, this was a great convention. This was, I think we're actually going to go home and miss it. You know, usually with a convention, first of all, look at these crowds. You'd never have this at a convention. Look at these crowds. Love, it's about love. This week, the entire Republican Party has formally adopted an agenda for America's renewal, and you saw that agenda. And it's very short compared to the long, boring, meaningless agendas of the past, including the Democrats. They write these things that are hundreds of pages long, and they never read them after they're done. In their case, fortunately, they don't read them because they're pretty bad. It's a series of bold promises that we will swiftly implement when you give us a Republican House. And Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. We have our great Speaker of the House with us tonight. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Thank you. A Republican Senate, we have many senators here. And send me back to our beautiful White House just a few short months from now. We're talking about just months. It can't come fast enough. We have to get it done. First, we must get economic relief to our citizens. Starting on day one, we will drive down prices and make America affordable again. We have to make it affordable. It's not affordable. People can't live like this. Under this administration, our current administration, groceries are up 57%, gasoline is up 60 and 70%, mortgage rates have quadrupled. And the fact is, it doesn't matter what they are because you can't get the money anyway. You can't buy houses. Young people can't get any financing to buy a house. The total household costs have increased an average of $28,000 per family under this administration. Republicans have a plan to bring down prices and bring them down very, very rapidly. By slashing energy costs, we will in turn reduce the cost of transportation, manufacturing, and all household goods. So much starts with energy. And remember, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country by far. We are a nation that has the opportunity to make an absolute fortune with its energy. We have it, and China doesn't. Under the Trump administration, just 3.5 years ago, we were energy independent. But soon, we will actually be better than that. We will be energy dominant and supply not only ourselves, but we will supply the rest of the world with numbers that nobody has ever seen, and we will reduce our debt, $36 trillion. We will start reducing that, and we will also reduce your taxes still further. Next, and by the way, they want to raise your taxes 4 times, think of it. And all my life I grew up watching politicians. I always loved politics, I guess. I was on the other side. I'd watch and they were always talking about, we will give you a tax cut. We will give you a tax cut. My whole life I was watching, I will give you a tax cut, right, Mr. Congressman? That's all they talked about. This is the only administration that said, we're going to raise your taxes by 4 times what you're paying now, and people are supposed to vote for them? I've never heard it. You're paying too much. We're going to reduce your taxes still further. We gave you the biggest one, as I said. We're going to give you more, and it's going to lead to tremendous growth. We want growth in our country. That's what's going to pay off our debt. And next, we will end the ridiculous and actually incredible waste of taxpayer dollars that is fueling the inflation crisis. They spent trillions of dollars on things having to do with the Green New Scam. It's a scam. And that's caused tremendous inflationary pressures in addition to the cost of energy. And all of the trillions of dollars that are sitting there not yet spent, we will redirect that money for important projects like roads, bridges, dams, and we will not allow it to be spent on meaningless Green New Scam ideas. And I will end the electric vehicle mandate on day one. Thereby saving the U.S. auto industry from complete obliteration, which is happening right now, and saving U.S. customers thousands and thousands of dollars per car. And right now, as we speak, large factories just started, are being built across the border in Mexico. So with all the other things happening on our border, and they're being built by China to make cars and to sell them into our country. No tax, no anything. The United Auto Workers ought to be ashamed for allowing this to happen. And the leader of the United Auto Workers should be fired immediately. And every single auto worker, union and non-union, should be voting for Donald Trump, because we're going to bring back car manufacturing and we're going to bring it back fast. They're building some of the largest auto plants anywhere in the world. Think of it, in the world. We're going to bring it back. We're going to make them. We don't mind that happening, but those plants are going to be built in the United States, and our people are going to man those plants. And if they don't agree with us, we'll put a tariff of approximately 100 to 200% on each car, and they will be unsellable in the United States. We have long been taken advantage of by other countries. And think of it, oftentimes these other countries are considered so-called allies. They've taken advantage of us for years. We lose jobs, we lose revenue, and they gain everything and wipe out our businesses, wipe out our people. I stopped it for 4 years. I stopped it. And we're really ready to make changes like nobody had seen before. And remember, USMCA, I got rid of NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made, and replaced it with USMCA, which is, they say, the best trade deal ever made. Actually, probably the best trade deal was the deal I made with China, where they buy $50 billion worth of our product. They were buying nothing. They buy $50 billion worth. They had to. But I don't even talk about it because of COVID. I don't even mention it, frankly, because of what happened with the China virus. We will not let countries come in, take our jobs, and plunder our nation. They come and do that. They plunder our nation. The way they will sell their product in America is to build it in America. Very simple. Build it in America and only in America. And this very simple formula, and Congress has to go along with us, and they will. This very simple formula will create massive numbers of jobs. We will take over the auto industry again, and many, many, hundreds of thousands of jobs. We lost so many jobs over the years. If you go back 20, 25 years, they've stolen, going to China and Mexico, about 68% of our auto industry manufacturing jobs. We're going to get them all back. We're going to get them all back, every one of them. At the center of our plan for economic relief are massive tax cuts for workers that include something else that's turned out to be very popular, actually. Here it's very popular, in this building and all those hotels that I saw that are so nice. I'm staying in a nice one. It's called no tax on tips. No tax on tips. No tax on tips. I got that by having dinner recently in Nevada, where we're leading by about 14 points. Hello. I'll see you there very soon, everybody. We're having dinner at a beautiful restaurant in the Trump building on the Strip, and it's a great building, and the waitress comes over. How's everything going? A really nice person. How's everything? Oh, sir, it's so tough. The government's after me all the time on tips, tips, tips. I said, well, they give you cash. Would they be able to find him? She said, actually, and I didn't know this, she said, very little cash is given. It's all put right on the check. And they come in and they take so much of our money, it's just ridiculous, and they don't believe anything we say. And they've just hired, as you know, 88,000 agents to go after him even more. And I said, this shows the level of my, most people go out, they hire consultants, they pay them millions of dollars. But I said to her, let me just ask you a question. Would you be happy if you had no tax on tips? She said, what a great idea. I got my information from a very smart waitress. That's better than spending millions of dollars. And everybody loves it. Waitresses and caddies and drivers and everybody. It's a large group of people that are being really hurt badly. They make money, let them keep their money. I'm going to protect Social Security and Medicare. Democrats are going to destroy Social Security and Medicare because all of these people, by the millions they're coming in, they're going to be on Social Security and Medicare and other things, and you're not able to afford it. They are destroying your Social Security and your Medicare. Under my plan, incomes will skyrocket, inflation will vanish completely, jobs will come roaring back, and the middle class will prosper like never, ever before, and we're going to do it very rapidly. But no hope or dream we have for America can succeed unless we stop the illegal immigrant invasion, the worst that's ever been seen anywhere in the world. There's never been an invasion like this anywhere. Third world countries would fight with sticks and stones not to let this happen. The invasion at our southern border, we will stop it, and we will stop it quickly. You heard Tom Homan yesterday. Tom Homan, put him in charge and just sit back and watch. Brandon Judd of Border Patrol, he's incredible. These guys, they really, their job is a lot easier if they don't have to do anything, but they want to. They're patriots. Brandon Judd, Border Patrol, ICE. ICE goes out. You have to see what ICE does with MS-13. You have these are probably the worst gang, and ICE goes in there. And I know a lot of people in these rows here, and they're very tough people, but they don't want to do this job. They'll go into a pack of MS-13 killers. They're the worst. Probably the worst gangs in the world. We have thousands of them. I moved thousands and thousands out in my 4 years. We moved them out, and it was a pleasure. But ICE would go right into a pack of these killers, and you see fists flying, you see everything flying, and then they take them. They put them in a paddy wagon. They take them back, and they get them out of our country. And the other countries weren't accepting them back, and I called up, and I said, tell them that we're not giving them economic aid anymore. And the next day, I got calls from all of these countries that were terminated. Billions of dollars we spend on economic aid to countries that does us, frankly, no good. And the next day, I was called by everybody. I couldn't take all the calls. Sir, what's the problem? I said, you won't take your killers back that you sent in caravans into America. You won't take them back. Well, sir, if you'd like us to, we would give very serious consideration to doing that. And within 24 hours, they were being taken back. For years and years, when I first came in, they said President Obama tried to get him to go back, and they wouldn't accept him. They'd put planes on the runway so you couldn't leave the plane. They'd close the road so you couldn't take the buses. They'd all have to turn back. As soon as I said no more economic aid of any kind to any country that does that, they called back and they said, sir, it would be our great honor to take MS-13. We love them very much. We love them very much, sir. We'll take them back. At the heart of the Republican platform is our pledge to end this border nightmare and fully restore the sacred and sovereign borders of the United States of America, and we're going to do that on day one. That means two things on day one, right? Drill, baby, drill, and close our borders. And by the way, and I think everybody as a Republican, as a patriot in this room, and most Democrats, we want people to come into our country, but they have to come into our country legally. Legally. Less than 4 years ago, I handed this administration the strongest border in American history. But you can see on the chart that saved my life, that was the chart that saved my life. I said, look it, I'm so proud of it. I think it's one of the greatest, it was done by the Border Patrol, one of the greatest charts I've ever seen. It showed everything just like that. You know the chart. Oh, there it is. That's pretty good. Wow. Last time I put up that chart, I never really got to look at it. But without that chart, I would not be here today. Never got to look at it. I said, you got to see this chart. I was so proud of it, and by the time I got to there, I never got to see it that day. But I'm seeing it now, and I was very proud. If you look at the arrow on the bottom, that's the lowest level, the one on the bottom, heavy red arrow. That's the lowest level of illegal immigrants ever to come into our country in recorded history, right there. Right there. And that was my last week in office. And then you see what happened after I left. Look at the rest. And if you go out a little bit further, it's getting to be a little bit old, but I love it anyway, right? But you can go much higher with those numbers. Look what happened right after that. The invasion began. We had the opposite. We stopped the invasion. But the invasion that we stopped was peanuts by comparison to what happened after I left. Look at what happened after I left. They took over our country. We ended all catch and release. We shut down asylum fraud. We stopped human trafficking and forged historic agreements to keep illegal aliens on foreign soil. We want them to stay on their soil. Under the Trump administration, if you came in illegally, you were apprehended immediately and you were deported. You went right back. The current administration terminated every single one of those great Trump policies that I put in place to seal the border. I wanted a sealed border. Again, come in, but come in legally. You know how unfair it is? So many people, hundreds of thousands of people, have been working for years to come into our country. And now they see these people pour into our country at levels that are unprecedented. It's so unfair. And we're not going to do it. We're not going to stand for it. They suspended wall construction, ended remain in Mexico. We had a policy, remain in Mexico. You think that was easy to get from the Mexican government? But I said, you must give it to us. If you don't give it to us, there will be repercussions. And they gave it to us. But not easy. Canceled our Safe Third agreements. Demolished Title 42, implemented nationwide catch and release. That's catch and release, where we catch them and release them into our country. We catch them and release them into Mexico. There's a slight difference. And took 93, this is the previous administration, 93 executive actions to throw open our border to the world. The entire world is pouring into our country because of this very foolish administration. The greatest invasion in history is taking place right here in our country. They are coming in from every corner of the earth, not just from South America, but from Africa, Asia, the Middle East. They're coming from everywhere. They're coming at levels that we've never seen before. It is an invasion indeed, and this administration does absolutely nothing to stop them. They're coming from prisons. They're coming from jails. They're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums. You know, the press is always on me because I say this. Has anyone seen Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He'd love to have you for dinner. That's insane asylums. They're emptying out their insane asylums. And terrorists are coming in at numbers that we've never seen before. Bad things are going to happen. Meanwhile, our crime rate is going up while crime statistics all over the world are going down because they're taking their criminals and they're putting them into our country. A certain country, and I happen to like the president of that country very much, but he's been getting great publicity because he's a wonderful shepherd of the country. He says how well the country's doing because their crime rate is down. And he said he's training all of these rough people. They're rough. He's training them. And I've been reading about this for 2 years. I think, oh, that's wonderful. Let's take a look at it. But then I realized he's not training them. He's sending all of his criminals, his drug dealers, his people that are in jails, he's sending them all to the United States. And he's different in that he doesn't say that. He's trying to convince everybody what a wonderful job he does in running the country. Well, he doesn't do a wonderful job. And by the way, if I ran one of the countries, many countries from all over, I would be worse than any of them. I would have had the place totally emptied out already. But we become a dumping ground for the rest of the world, which is laughing at us. They think we're stupid. And they can't believe that they're getting away with what they're getting away with, but they're not going to be getting away with it for long. That's what I can tell you. In Venezuela, Caracas, high crime. Caracas, Venezuela, really a dangerous place, but not anymore. Because in Venezuela, crime is down 72%. In fact, if they would ever win this election, I hate to even say that, we will have our next Republican convention in Venezuela because it will be safe. Our cities will be so unsafe, we will not be able to have it there. In El Salvador, murders are down by 70%. Why are they down? Now, he would have you convinced that because he's trained murderers to be wonderful people. No. They're down because they're sending their murderers to the United States of America. This is going to be very bad. And bad things are going to happen, and you're seeing it happen all the time. That's why, to keep our families safe, the Republican platform promises to launch the largest deportation operation in the history of our country. Even larger than that of President Dwight D. Eisenhower from many years ago. You know, he was a moderate, but he believed very strongly in borders. He had the largest deportation operation we've ever had. Just recently, I spoke to the grieving mother of Jocelyn Nungary, a wonderful woman, a precious 12-year-old girl from Houston who last month was tied up, assaulted, and strangled to death after walking to the convenience store just a block away from her house. Her body was dumped near the side of the road in a shallow creek, found by some onlookers who couldn't believe what they had witnessed. Charged with Jocelyn's heinous murder are 2 illegal aliens from Venezuela who came across our border, were in custody, and were then released into the country by this horrible, horrible administration that we have right now. I also met recently with the heartbroken mother and sister of Rachel Morin. Rachel was a 37-year-old mom of 5 beautiful children who was brutally raped and murdered while out on a run. She wanted to keep herself in good shape. It was very important to her. She was murdered. The monster responsible first killed another woman in El Salvador before he was led into America by the White House. This White House let them in. He then attacked a 9-year-old girl and her mother in a home invasion in Los Angeles before murdering Rachel in Maryland. Traveled all throughout the country, doing tremendous damage. Rachel's mother will never be the same. I spent time with her. She will never be the same. I've also met with the wonderful family of Lake and Riley, the brilliant 22-year-old nursing student. She was so proud of being first in her class, who was out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia when she was assaulted, beaten, and horrifically killed. Yet another American life was stolen by a criminal alien set free by this administration. And these were incredible people we're talking about. These were incredible people who died. Tonight, America, this is my vow. I will not let these killers and criminals into our country. I will keep our sons and daughters safe. As we bring security to our streets, we will help bring stability to the world. I was the first president in modern times to start no new wars. You know, we were the toughest, we were the most respected. And you saw this. Hungry, strong country, run by a very powerful, tough leader. He's a tough guy. Press doesn't like him because he's tough. And he came out recently. They were asking him at an interview, the whole world is exploding. What's happening? What's going on? Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, very tough man. He said, I don't want people coming into my country and blowing up our shopping centers and killing people. But they said to him, tell us what's going wrong, what's happening, what is it? He said, there's only one way you're going to solve it. You got to bring President Trump back to the United States because he kept everybody at bay. He used a word I wouldn't use because I can't use that word, because you'd say it was braggadocious. The press would say he was a braggart. I'm not a braggart. But Viktor Orban said it. He said Russia was afraid of him. China was afraid of him. Everybody was afraid of him. Nothing was going to happen. The whole world was at peace. And now the world is blowing up around us. All of these things that you read about were not going to happen. Under President Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under President Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under the current administration, Russia is after all of Ukraine. Under President Trump, Russia took nothing. We defeated 100% of ISIS in Syria and Iraq, something that was said to take 5 years, sir. It'll take 5 years, sir. We did it in a matter of a couple of months. We have a great military. Our military is not woke. It's just some of the fools on top that are woke. I got along very well. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, I got along very well with him. The press hated when I said that. How could you get along with him? Well, you know, it's nice to get along with somebody who has a lot of nuclear weapons or otherwise, isn't it? See, in the old days, they'd say, that's a wonderful thing. Now they say, how could you possibly do that? But no, I got along with him, and we stopped the missile launches from North Korea. Now North Korea is acting up again, but when we get back, I get along with him. He'd like to see me back, too. I think he misses me, if you want to know the truth. Our opponents inherited a world at peace and turned it into a planet of war. We're in a planet of war. Look at that attack on Israel. Look at what's happening with Ukraine. The cities are just bombed out. How can people live like that where buildings, massive buildings, are falling to the ground? It began to unravel with the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the worst humiliation in the history of our country. We have never had a humiliation like that. 13 heroic U.S. service members were tragically and needlessly killed. 45 others were horrifically wounded. Nobody ever talks about them. No arms, no legs, face explosions, horrifically wounded. And by the way, we have a man in this room who's running for the U.S. Senate from a great state, Nevada, named Sam Brown, who paid the ultimate price. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. He paid the biggest price probably ever paid by anybody that is running for office, and I think he's going to do great. He's running against a person that is not good, not respected, a total lightweight. But Sam, I think, paid, really, we were talking about it with some of the senators that are working so hard for Sam, but he paid the biggest price of any senator ever to run for the Senate. I don't think anybody's ever what he did. He was a real hero, a really great person, and he's running, and I hope that everybody gets out and votes for Sam Brown. And we also left behind $85 billion worth of military equipment, along with many American citizens were left behind. Many, many American citizens, emboldened by that disaster, Russia invaded Ukraine. They saw this group of people that were incompetent. We took the soldiers out first. No, we're going to take the soldiers out second. If they would have followed my plan, we had a great plan. But the plan only kicked in if they did everything perfectly, and they weren't doing things perfectly, so we said it doesn't kick in. You know, 18 months in Afghanistan, we didn't have one, so they were killing them left and right, snipers. And I spoke to the head of the Taliban. You've heard this story. Abdul, still there, still the head of the Taliban. The press got on me, why would you speak to him? I said, because that's where the killing is. I don't have to speak to somebody that has nothing to do with it. And I told him, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that again. You've got to stop. Because during the Obama administration, many great people and soldiers, but a lot of soldiers were being killed from long distance. I said, if you keep doing that, you're going to be hit harder than anybody's ever been hit by a country before. And he said, I understand, Your Excellency. He called me Your Excellency. I wonder if he calls the other guy Your Excellency. I doubt it. The other guy gave him everything. I mean, what kind of a deal was that? He walked out, gave him everything. Do you know that right now Afghanistan is one of the largest sellers of weapons in the world? They're selling the brand new, beautiful weapons that we gave them. But think of it. He actually said to me, but why do you show me a picture of my home? I said, you'll have to ask your people or one of your wives. But he could figure it out. And for 18 months, we had not one attack on an American soldier by the Taliban. 18 months. And then we had that horrible day where soldiers were killed. I was not there because of a ridiculous election. But we had that horrible attack. And they also gave up Bagram, one of the biggest bases anywhere in the world, air bases anywhere in the world, the longest runways, most powerful, hardened, thickened runways. We gave it up. And I liked it not because of Afghanistan. I liked it because of China. It's 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. And you know who has it now? China has it now. We were keeping that. And now China is likewise circling Taiwan, and Russian warships and nuclear submarines are operating 60 miles off the coast in Cuba. Do you know that? No, the press refuses to write about it. If that were me running this country and we had nuclear submarines in Cuba, I will tell you that headlines every day would be, what's wrong with our president? You don't even hear this. You're not hearing about this. Russia has nuclear submarines and warships 60 miles away, Mr. Congressman, from Miami, by the way, happens to be here. Correct? In Cuba. And that would not be stood for if it were somebody else. They don't want to mention it, but now maybe they will. And the entire world, I tell you this, we want our hostages back, and they better be back before I assume office. Well, you will be paying a very big price. With our victory in November, the years of war, weakness, and chaos will be over. I don't have wars. I had no wars other than ISIS, which I defeated, but that was a war that was started. We had no wars. I could stop wars with a telephone call. I could stop wars with just a telephone call. If properly stated, it would never start. We will replenish our military and build an Iron Dome missile defense system to ensure that no enemy can strike our homeland. And this great Iron Dome will be built entirely in the USA. We're going to build it in the USA. And Wisconsin, just like I gave you that massive ship contract, and you're doing a very nice job, Governor, right? Thank you, Governor. And they're doing a great job. In fact, I had a little design change, and we gave them a tremendous for essentially what we used to call destroyers. These are now the most beautiful. They look like yachts. I said, we have to take the bow, and we have to make it a little nicer and a little point at the top instead of a flat nose. And the people at the shipyard said, this guy sort of knows what he's doing. We have the most beautiful ships, right, Governor? And everybody sitting over there. And it was a big contract that everybody wanted. I gave it to Wisconsin, but we're going to have a lot of that built right here in the state of Wisconsin and all other states. Israel has an Iron Dome. They have a missile defense system. 342 missiles were shot into Israel, and only one got through a little bit. It was badly wounded. It fell to the ground, but most of them are. And Ronald Reagan wanted this many years ago, but we really didn't have the technology many years ago. Remember, they called it Starship, spaceship, anything to mock him. But he was a very good president, very, very good. But now we have unbelievable technology. And why should other countries have this and we don't? No, we're going to build an Iron Dome over our country, and we're going to be sure that nothing can come and harm our people. And again, from an economic development standpoint, we're going to make it all right here. No more sending it out to other countries in order to help. It's America first. America first. We will unleash the power of American innovation. And as we do, we will soon be on the verge of finding the cures to cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and many other diseases. We're going to get to the bottom of it. You remember this gentleman that I don't want to mention other than one time I had to, because when you say you're the 10 worst, I had to do it. I didn't want anybody to be confused. But this man said, we're going to find a cure to cancer. Nothing happened. We're going to get to the cure for cancer and Alzheimer's and so many other things. We're so close to doing something great. But we need a leader that will let it be done. We will not have men playing in women's sports. That will end immediately. And we will restore and renovate our nation's once great cities, making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. And that includes our nation's capital, which is a horrible killing field. So many things. They leave from Wisconsin, they go to look at the Washington Monument, they end up getting stabbed, killed, or shot. We will be very soon very proud of our capital, again, Washington, D.C. America is on the cusp of a new golden age, but we will have the courage to seize it. We're going to take it. We're going to make it a current. We're going to bring this into a golden age like never seen before. Remember this, China wants to do it. Japan wants to do it. All of these countries want to do it. We have to produce massive amounts of energy if we're going to produce the new. If you look at some of the things that have been done and some of the things that we're going to do, but AI needs literally twice the electricity that's available now in our country. Can you imagine? but instead we're spending places where they recharge electric cars. They built 8 chargers at a certain location toward the Midwest. 8 chargers for $9 billion. Think of them as a tank for filling up your gas. Think of it. They spent $9 billion on 8 chargers, 3 of which didn't work. And if you were going to do this all over our country, this crazy electric mandate, if you're going to do this all, and by the way, I'm all for electric. They have their application. But if somebody wants to buy a gas-powered car, gasoline-powered car, or a hybrid, they're going to be able to do it. And we're going to make that change on day 1. So to conclude, just a few short days ago, my journey with you nearly ended. We know that. And yet, here we are tonight, all gathered together, talking about the future, promise, and a total renewal of a thing we love very much. It's called America. We live in a world of miracles. None of us knows God's plan or where life's adventure will take us. I want to thank Franklin Graham for being here tonight. He's an outstanding man. He wrote me a note recently. I have a lot of respect for him. Sir, I love your storytelling. I think it's great in front of these big rallies. But, sir, please do me one favor. It won't make any difference. Please don't use any foul language. I was a little embarrassed. I said, he said, it won't make any difference. Actually, it does. The story's not quite as good, but I've been very good. The story is not quite as good, to be honest. I've got to have a little talk with Franklin, but he was great. He's a great gentleman. His father was so incredible, Billy Graham. My father used to love taking me to see Billy Graham. My father would take me to see Billy Graham at Yankee Stadium. He had the biggest rallies you've ever seen. He was a good rally guy, too. But he'd get up, and he was a fantastic guy. My father loved Billy Graham. But I love Franklin Graham. I think Franklin's been fantastic, and I'm just working so hard to adhere to his note to me. I'm working hard on it, Franklin. But if the events of last Saturday make anything clear, it is that every single moment we have on earth is a gift from God. We have to make the most of every day for the people and for the country that we love. The attacker in Pennsylvania wanted to stop our movement, but the truth is the movement has never been about me. It has always been about you. It's your movement. It's the biggest movement in the history of our country by far. Can't be stopped. It can't be stopped. It has always been about the hardworking, patriotic citizens of America. For too long, our nation has settled for too little. We settled for too little. We've given everything to other nations, to other people. You've been told to lower your expectations and to accept less for your families. I am here tonight with the opposite message. Your expectations are not big enough. They're not big enough. It is time to start expecting and demanding the best leadership in the world, leadership that is bold, dynamic, relentless, and fearless. We can do that. We are Americans. Ambition is our heritage. Greatness is our birthright. But as long as our energies are spent fighting each other, our destiny will remain out of reach, and that's not acceptable. We must instead take that energy and use it to realize our country's true potential and write our own thrilling chapter of the American story. We can do it together. We will unite. We are going to come together, and success will bring us together. It is a story of love, sacrifice, and so many other things. And remember the word, devotion. It's unmatched devotion. Our American ancestors crossed the Delaware, survived the icy winter at Valley Forge, and defeated a mighty empire to establish our cherished republic. They fought so hard, they lost so many. They pushed thousands and thousands of miles across a dangerous frontier, taming the wilderness to build a life and a magnificent home for their family. They packed their families into covered wagons, trekked across hazardous trails, scaled towering mountains, and braved rivers and rapids to stake their claim on the wide open, new, and very beautiful frontier. When our way of life was threatened, American patriots marched onto the battlefield, raced into enemy strongholds, and stared down death and stared down those enemies to keep alive the flame of freedom. At Yorktown, Gettysburg, and Midway, they joined the roll call of immortal heroes. So many just so many heroes, so many great, great people. And we have to cherish those people. We can't forget those people. We have to cherish those people. And building monuments to those great people is a good thing, not a bad thing. They saved our country. No challenge was too much. No hardship was too great. No enemy was too fierce. Together, these patriots soldiered on and endured, and they prevailed because they had faith in each other, faith in their country, and above all, they had faith in their God. Just like our ancestors, we must now come together, rise above past differences. Any disagreements have to be put aside and go forward, united as one people, one nation, pledging allegiance to one great, beautiful, I think it's so beautiful, American flag. Tonight I ask for your partnership, for your support, and I am humbly asking for your vote. I want your vote. Going to make our country great again. Every day I will strive to honor the trust you have placed in me, and I will never, ever let you down. I promise that. I will never let you down. To all of the forgotten men and women who have been neglected, abandoned, and left behind, you will be forgotten no longer. We will press forward, and together we will win, win, win. Win, 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 win. Nothing will sway us, nothing will slow us, and no one will ever stop us. No matter what dangers come our way, no matter what obstacles lie in our path, we will keep striving toward our shared and glorious destiny, and we will not fail. We will not fail. Together we will save this country, we will restore the republic, and we will usher in the rich and wonderful tomorrows that our people so truly deserve. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before. And quite simply put, we will very quickly make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wisconsin. God bless you. God bless you, Wisconsin, and God bless the United States of America, our great country. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, thank God. Oh, my God. Oh, Jesus.
I'm dying right now.
He literally, that speech took 2 days. We are in the second day of that speech.
Are you ready for a fact check?
Oh, just the one? Just the one fact check? Oh, wait a minute. I've got to show this.
Okay.
So Melania is actually like, hey,
Oh, why is she? Oh,
oh my God, look, that was the pain on her face.
oh, yikes.
Oh, look, and she's moving away. Oh, God.
Oh, do I have to? Do I have to hold your hand? Was this in the contract?
No. Oh my God.
Brutal.
Oh,
Brutal.
okay. All right. Oh, shoot. Buddy.
Mm.
So you said a fact check. Okay.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to I'm going to try to go through this quickly, everybody. Are you ready? We put down guesses. 74% of people in my chat predicted that Trump would tell more than 50 lies. I think we got up there if you sort of count referencing lies. I'm going to go through 40. We'll see if I can do it quickly. And I want to start by saying I had no problem with him recounting, of course, his tragedy, and that was a horrific event worthy of much denunciation. It was interesting how he began with unity and then ended in unity. That was the part they rewrote clearly, but right in the middle, it's
Yeah,
just
it was
the
all that
same
middle
speech
part, right? It was,
they were planning on telling
yeah.
no matter what, and that was just absolutely filled with lies. Some of these are sort of funny lies. So like he said with faith about something, he was saying no evidence he's ever been faithful. The Democratic Party is weaponizing the justice system. No evidence of that, as shown by Bob Menendez, now being convicted felon himself. He called them partisan witch hunts. That's obviously not accurate. Trump said he's saving democracy. Few people in American history have gone after democracy the way that Trump has. He said he has an amazing wife, Melania. No evidence Trump thinks his wife is amazing based on their interactions, as we just
And
observed.
certainly plenty of evidence that she doesn't find him amazing.
Maybe that way is more clear. He said we beat them on impeachments. He's been impeached twice. Maybe he means convictions. Okay. He said we beat them on indictments. He was convicted. I don't know how that's beating them on indictments. We did a great job with COVID. The mishandling of Trump on COVID is at least focusing on one metric shown by the hundreds of thousands of deaths that could have been prevented, according to medical professionals, if we had a better handling that was taken more serious.
Yeah, on that note, just to add to that, Dr. Deborah Birx, his own medical advisor, said that everything after the first 100,000 deaths, in her professional opinion, could have been prevented had Trump and the Trump administration taken the virus more seriously.
He said that he rebuilt the military. I'm curious by what metrics he means that, because we saw massive increases in investments in the military under Obama. Return law and order to the streets. If by law and order he means trying to prevent crime and hold people accountable for crime. Obviously, crime rates have been plummeting under President Joe Biden, now lower than they were under Trump. He said we're a nation in decline. Again, I don't know why.
Can
why he
we
would
take
say
a look
that.
at that just a second here? So Steve Ratner has been fact-checking him as well. Trump's violent crime rates were actually higher than President Biden's. 2024 is on track for a 26% decrease in crime relative to Trump's last term.
He said a bunch of stuff about the quote-unquote illegal immigration crisis. His rhetoric, obviously, on that is vile. But we should note, if we're talking about wanting to solve problems at the border, as Josiah mentioned earlier, Trump has called for Republicans to essentially shoot down all solutions, even very conservative ones, to hurt Biden politically. He said, we will drill, baby, drill. I don't know how we drill more than we currently are, because right now we're breaking records, much more oil production in the United States than we saw even under Trump, hitting record highs for this country and for every country in the history of humanity. He said we'll start paying off debt. That's what he said going into his last term, and he added more to the debt than any president in American history. He said inflation is still high, I guess, and had a bunch of inflation talking points. Just as a reminder, inflation is now down close to that healthy economic figure where you want to have it, and wages are growing faster.
Yeah, to the extent that the Federal Reserve is actually now contemplating interest rate cuts for the first time in years. Also on that score, just with respect to debt, again, Steve Ratner's pointed this out, Trump added twice as much debt than President Biden in a similar 4-year term, and Trump promised that he would not only not add to the debt, but he would wipe out all the debt he'd inherited from previous presidents from Obama all the way to President Washington.
He blamed the invasion of Ukraine on President Biden. There is no evidence that that makes any sense. And actually, if you had to pick one person that has been the most strong and influential in the defense of Ukraine, thus discouraging of Russia and invading Ukraine further, it has been President Biden. He said that, I told you before, Josiah, that he said this thing about Iran. We were about to make a deal. We were going to have everything figured out with Iran. He made that claim again.
Can we talk about the Iran thing too? Because again, there was so much there that I was trying to keep track of as well. So the situation with Iran is very important. You know, he complained about how close they are to developing a nuclear weapon. That happened specifically and exclusively because of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump revoked the JCPOA, basically the Iran nuclear deal. We were paying them, and it was working to not build nuclear weapons.
That's right.
The United Nations and European allies and the United States were able to go in and actually inspect this. We did it multiple times. It was working as a deterrent. But Trump and the Republicans withdrew the deal, and now they're closer than ever to developing a nuclear weapon. The only reason that's the case is because Donald Trump shredded the deal.
Exactly right. He said that they used COVID to cheat, one of the most outrageous lies that he told. He said Biden was the worst president in American history. You can make, even with Biden's recent struggles and public perception problems and questions of competency, all that stuff, you can make a very compelling case that Biden's been one of the most effective presidents in modern American history. Trump
on that
said
score,
he built-
hang on. Also on that
Yeah.
score, there again, Luke. You have the Organization of American Presidential Scholars that get together routinely and carefully, forensically evaluate the presidencies. Again, going from Washington all the way to Biden, and Donald Trump is ranked dead last according to experts, people who understand presidencies infinitely better than anyone at the RNC. Because based on policy alone, Trump was objectively terrible, and also a failure with respect to his own agenda. President Biden has accomplished considerably more of his agenda than Trump did of his. And the bipartisan infrastructure law is just a beautiful apples to apples comparison. Trump promised to deliver infrastructure, sweeping infrastructure for 4 years, folks. Biden got it done in less than one. So we're not talking about two different policies. We're talking about one policy that both men tried to tackle, and Trump failed in 4 years. Biden got it done less than one. Biden is infinitely more competent than Trump. That's simply objective truth. Continue.
Absolutely. Trump built the greatest economy in the history of the world. I don't even want to send us into that rant, Josiah. But obviously, if you're making the case for the economic metrics that Trump oversaw, you have to give most of the credit to the recovery we saw under Obama, and then also take note of the very metrics that he would be celebrating were the ones that we saw a slowed progress from the economic projections that were being made as Obama left office. He said,
on that note, real GDP growth, which is the single most important macroeconomic metric, it was higher under President Biden than Donald Trump. Their employment, there are more people, there are more jobs than there are workers at the moment to fill those jobs. Employment is higher now than it was pre-pandemic. We have 6.5 million more jobs compared to pre-pandemic levels. So yes, everything Luke is saying is absolutely true.
and just so you know, I don't know if you're making a gesture at me or anything right now. I have this doc pulled up, so I wouldn't be able to see, so you can just keep jumping in. I'm loving it.
Oh, no. Sorry. No. I'm gesturing because I talk with my hands, unfortunately.
Oh, no, all good. I was just telling you as to why I haven't paused naturally. He
Yeah.
said the world was at peace while he was president. False. Yemen, Syria, even eastern Ukraine, talking about the invasion of Ukraine. If you look at sort of the thread to follow as we got to the full-scale invasion, you saw Russian-backed separatists causing ruckus and deaths there. Afghanistan, he promised to get out. Obviously, just like with all the things I mentioned before, it was going to happen. Right after he left office, there was still ongoing conflict between Israel, Palestine.
51 active armed conflicts going on at the world in 2020, as is the case in 2021. So when he left office, it was the same number of conflicts than when he was in office. So there was virtually no change.
I didn't know that stat.
Yeah.
And just as a few other examples, way more innocent civilian casualties from drone strikes than Obama and Biden, and they made that process less transparent. Biden has brought those down significantly. More U.S. troops died, as Josiah mentioned earlier, under him than Biden.
Yeah, well, can we talk about that? Because Afghanistan's kind of this whole thing. I just want to rattle a couple of things off. Yes. There were 13 U.S. service people who died under President Biden when ISIS-K attacked the Kabul airport as we were leaving Afghanistan. That was a tragedy. But 45 soldiers died under Donald Trump during his presidency. So if that grim statistic, soldiers' casualties, if that is, the metric by which we evaluate presidents, more U.S. troops died under Donald Trump than Joe Biden. Also, with respect to Afghanistan, Donald Trump says $80 billion worth of equipment. It's not true. $20 billion worth of equipment was given to Afghanistan or sold to Afghanistan across the 20-year term under Bush, under Obama, under Trump, and under Biden. And by the way, the DOD did audits even during the Trump administration to try to track this equipment. They failed those audits, which means that Donald Trump allowed U.S. sold or loaned equipment to the Taliban to not be properly tracked. And once again, per usual, just left everything for Biden to clean up. And I also point out with respect to Afghanistan, Donald Trump released 5,000 imprisoned Taliban fighters, 5,000, and then left half that number in terms of U.S. troops. So he gave the Taliban back twice as many troops as he left for President Biden in Afghanistan. He did not hold the Taliban to any of their stipulations, any of the terms they were supposed to meet. There were 7 conditions. The only condition that the Taliban honored was to not shoot U.S. troops. Donald Trump did not enforce the other 6 conditions, but again, continued to retrograde U.S. forces. So it's simply objectively a fact that Donald Trump set the stage for an impossible withdrawal from Afghanistan in terms of smoothness. So something else to remember.
And one of the reasons I've stated before, with the tragedy that it was in our exit of Afghanistan, one of the reasons presidents before Biden didn't get it done like Trump after promising to, is because you're going to be informed on, and it was more disastrous than probably Biden thought it was going to be, but you're going to be informed on the logistical, potentially humanitarian nightmare that this is. But unless you think we should have stayed in Afghanistan forever, then Biden did what was a very difficult thing that other presidents couldn't because of the knowledge that it could turn out to be so disastrous. Trump said that we experienced the worst inflation ever in the United States under Biden. That's just not true. And we've talked about before, if you look at the spending and the supply chain problems and all these things that were happening under Trump leading into Biden, just like we saw in countries around the world post-pandemic, we were going to have inflation. And I think the rapid decrease in those rates is something that you could credit not just to Biden, but to some of these efforts across different entities and individuals. Americans, you mentioned earlier, Biden, Josiah, the high employment numbers under Biden. I'm getting sleepy too. And Trump said that Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force by undocumented. Reality, we're seeing so much, I think, record high and near full employment. So that just could not be more false.
Our labor force participation for prime workers is high under Biden than it ever was under Donald Trump. It's the highest it's been since President Bush. And again, we have more job openings than people to fill them. That's how good our employment situation is. Like we have, I think it's still near 4% unemployment rate. And again, even if you control for COVID with respect to employment, this is huge, folks. Biden still has a better jobs record than Trump.
Yep.
Joe Biden, if you break it down by monthly averages, it's 162,000 jobs created per month under Donald Trump, controlling for COVID, and 280,000 jobs per month created under President Biden, also controlling for COVID. Biden is the winner.
He said, and this one really just broke my brain, 107% of jobs have been taken by undocumented immigrants.
Right.
How does that make sense?
Well, math works differently for Republicans, okay? 170, you got to adjust for inflation, right? So 107% is 100% in Democrat math.
He said he has, with great humility, he said some sentence. I just marked that down because he has no humility. He said that Biden wants to raise your taxes for X. Biden has promised and stuck to not raising the taxes of anyone making less than $400,000 per year. And even for those making more than that, he's not going to 4X people's taxes. And it's funny they make these claims. Biden had the House and the Senate, and he was the president, and he didn't do these things. Trump also predicted the stock market was going to crash under Biden. It's hitting record highs. So it's just absurd that people could hear such a prediction, do the math in their head, multiplying the top marginal tax rate by 4. Is that really going to happen? Probably not, and definitely not for those making less than $400,000 per year. Biden's spending is fueling the inflation crisis. Inflation has been plummeting, as we talked about earlier. And if we're talking about spending, if we are blaming, even though there's more factors than just this, inflation on the spending, Trump was doing
Trump
even
spent
more
more.
of
Trump
that.
just spent twice as much as Biden did. Trump, by the way, deficit spent all 4 years in office. This idea that he only did ludicrous, extraordinary, extravagant, profligate spending because of COVID is simply not true. He deficit spent in year 1, year 2, year 3, and yes, year 4 during COVID.
Yep, way. Even if you take away the response to COVID spending, way more than Biden. And what was he adding to the deficit and thus debt in the interest of?
Well, a $2 trillion tax cut for the rich, Luke. I mean, come on. Why wouldn't you? I mean, what are your spending priorities? Here's the thing. Let's just say this. It's really reductive to compare, U.S. macro economics and macro spending compared to like a personal household. I know people like to compare it to your credit card. But if we really wanted to get crude, right, you got to compare what Republicans and Democrats swipe the credit card for. Republicans, and particularly Donald Trump, use the American credit card, again, in this very crude metaphor, of the equivalent of like a new flat screen TV for somebody who already has a flat screen TV. Whereas President Biden and everyone are using it, Democrats are using America's credit card for the equivalent of groceries, right? Just the spending priorities and what Biden has gotten done with the spending. And my God, just real quick, one metric which jumped out a lot because of the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the bipartisan infrastructure law, manufacturing construction has skyrocketed under President Biden, especially when you control, I think when you factor for inflation as well. So again, Biden has spent half as much as Trump and has gotten considerably more out of the deal.
He floated potentially putting a tariff of 100 to 200% on any foreign cars, which, if you're trying to get inflation down, that plus the 10% tariff across the board that he's interested in, you're doing the exact wrong thing. He did talk about the Green New Scam, referring to the Green New Deal, having all these impacts on this, that, and the other thing, which makes no sense given that it hasn't been passed or signed into law. And Biden's green energy policies are in the interest of trying to make sure we do have manufacturing here in the United States. Manufacturing also, as was mentioned by Biden, oh my gosh, it happened again, by Josiah.
Refer to me as the president. No.
I keep reading Biden on this doc, and my sleepy brain just goes whoosh.
Yeah.
We've seen a job boom in that sector under Biden. Trump said he's up 14 points in Nevada. In reality, he's up 5.5 points in the average of polls, according to 538, which is sort of uncomfortable even as is. But let's see here. I gotta skip through some of these. This is getting a little bit too much. I did take note that he brought up Hannibal Lecter again.
The late great Hannibal, who, by the way, did not die in any of the films or the TV show. Like, I don't understand the late. Anthony Hopkins and Mad Mikkelsen are still alive. So I don't know. The character's alive, the actor's alive. Who killed Hannibal Lecter?
Well, when the movies are done, then they're dead, I guess is.
Oh, I guess.
How he's
true. Touche,
out
sir.
of sight, out of mind. He told a story about cutting economic aid off to certain countries as leverage to get them to receive undocumented immigrants. I just sort of marked that as that's almost certainly false when he tells these stories. And they came to me, they said, "Sir, I never noticed how handsome you were. We'll be receiving all the undocumented immigrants." That's probably false. And Biden, by the way, is deporting at the same pace about that Trump did. And that chart, I would have to look at closer. I'll try to find it and look at more closely for future segments to understand. It seemed like it had to be presented in a funky manner, especially with the severe drop we've seen recently in border crossings, because it looked dramatic, obviously, and there has been an increase, but we've gone through that before. Again, y'all know how, if you're a viewer of my show, how much this one drives me crazy, and I'll throw it to Josiah to respond. Crime rate is going up, Trump said. Josiah?
Yeah, it's just simply not true. Again, we talked about this in one of the, 80 minutes ago when we began these fact checks. That was one of the first things that Luke and I mentioned was that crime rate is actually declining. Overall, it was higher under Donald Trump. We're on track for a 26% decrease in violent crime in particular, and even property crime as well. Now, this is where just Donald Trump and Republicans and the Fox propaganda network and the right-wing media apparatus are simply gaslighting you, and then they're appealing to anecdotes. Luke, how many times have you and I covered videos in which you'll have not just people like Laura Ingraham and others, but like Dana Perino, one of the more normal, conventional Fox propagandists will say things like, the White House will say that crime rates are dropping, but people feel that crime is rising. Well, they feel that way because you, on your wildly successful and influential network, tell them that. You blow up these anecdotes, which again, no one here is suggesting that the United States is perfectly peaceful or safe and that people aren't experiencing horrible acts of violent or property crime every day. But the macro data are clear about this. It is clear. Not just FBI statistics, but also statistics from local law enforcement agencies across the country. The trend is clear. Crime is dropping. And to suggest otherwise is simply to lie.
And rapidly. If we saw the sorts of drops in crime rates under Trump that we're seeing under Biden, Trump would describe himself as a miracle maker.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, I made this post earlier too because listen, Luke, you and I are friends. We're not just colleagues. We're friends. So you know this about me. I'm a cynic by nature. You're a bit more optimistic. I think it's entirely possible that we lose this election, and hopefully we won't. We need to work like hell to make that not happen. The election is 3.5 months away. There's still time. Listen. As another political commentator, Steve Shives, who's a good guy, you should check out his video essays, as he says, when we turn up, we win. There are more of us than there are of them. The anti-Trump coalition is bigger and has been bigger always than the Trump coalition. So we can win if we want to. We just got to turn up. That aside, there's a possibility that we don't and Trump wins. And it is staggering, Luke, to consider what Trump might inherit if he wins. You know what I'm saying? And what he will take credit for. No, and what he will take credit for and what Republicans will snap. I mean, it will be an instant flip. It will. The data shows it will. Paul Krugman, a Nobel Prize winning economist, has looked at this. The partisanship bias in perceptions of the economy. Yes, Democrats are guilty of it too, but Republicans much more so according to the data. If Trump wins the election and the economy continues as it has been under President Biden, within weeks of Trump winning, Republican perception on the economy will switch. I don't know about you, but that's so despairing.
About a year in, if not sooner, if Trump were to win, he will point to the metrics that were probably just the same or slightly worse, or at least projected based on the economy Biden would have handed him. And he'll point to those metrics and say it's because he's a genius. And the low crime rate, see, law and order, baby. Forget the massive spike at the end of my presidency the first time. This is my record because it was handed to me. Just like a good situation was handed to him by Obama. And this is not, I just want to note, and then we can wrap this up because I know I'm about to fall down into a slumber. This is not, let's just figure out how, there's always sort of a Democrat, Republican, so good things were just because of the previous one. We're talking about hard metrics that we've reviewed on the show before. Josiah and I have gone over before, economically, for example. And whenever Republicans try to tell these stories about the Republican overseeing of economies being better than Democrats, they have to do so in a fact-free way because all the facts are on the side of the exact opposite conclusion. So remember that last century, way better economic performance under Democrats, and just so often what we see is crises handed to Democrats, recoveries overseen by Democrats, and then a recovered situation handed to Republicans, and then often crises start again. So It's crazy to me, and that's why I don't even want to think about it. We just need to win this election so we don't have to go through that. To know exactly what you're saying is 100% true, which is all of the progress that has been made almost day one will be attributed to the success of Republicans if they were to get into power after pretending like that progress wasn't made. And that is heartbreaking, dishonest, but fully expected.
Yeah, no, again, that has been modern American economic history. And it's so stunning. And it goes back to what we've talked about before, not just how Republicans enjoy such a colossal media advantage and perception because they have a turnkey propaganda apparatus just chugging this stuff out. But also it's like one of those things that they come into office, they leave a mess, and because the cleanup by the subsequent Democrats is tough, right? People are and have struggled, and it's not easy. Then it's human nature to blame whoever the sitting president is, and so you're like, screw it, I'll get the opposite in, and so you go back to a Republican, and then the whole thing repeats. It's a cycle we must break, folks. Regardless of what happens with President Biden, I understand that there's people in chat are talking about it. Persistent rumors that he may end up dropping out. I would argue if you're an eligible voter, it is in your best interest and the best interest of your loved ones and the best interest of your nation to break the cycle by not voting in another Republican president. Otherwise, this will continue to persist. And also consider Trump's Project 2025, because they've recognized, they understand the electoral L's that they have accumulated, the defeats in 2018, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. They understand that they have so many advantages, but what they don't have are the numbers and the popularity. They know that. So they're shoring up their weaknesses. They're going to do a full court press if Trump wins the presidency, if they keep the House, and if they get the Senate, which is very possible if we don't turn up. And then you have to factor in the Supreme Court of the United States just cut Donald Trump a blank check effectively if he becomes president again, because the threat of criminal liability is no longer on the table. It was bad enough when we experienced this before with other Republican presidents who were always less preferable to their Democratic counterparts. It was bad. It was even worse when Trump won in 2016. But based on what we've seen and based on what we've heard from this man, remember, this is his unity message, folks. This was his unity message. It's going to get worse still. So for everything that Luke is describing and I'm describing as well, not just with respect to the economy, but democracy as a whole, we still have a chance to defeat this man and his party, and we've got to do it at the ballot box in November.
Could not have said it better myself. So my closing analysis is Trump tried at the beginning and end in a pretty vapid way. Again, not talking about him reviewing the tragedy. We give respect to that. But just with his words, just trying to say I'm for unity, but nothing's more divisive than spewing dozens of lies, insulting the American people, thinking that you can convince them of things that are not true. Nothing's more divisive than that. And if we see messages in the mainstream media of, a softer tone, more unifying, they're missing the mark. And so I couldn't even go through all the lies that we're told. We try to do our best, and that's where I'll leave it. A speech full of lies, a disastrous one at that, and the moments of trying to come off as more palatable to
presidential
Americans were not compelling. Don't even go there. But yes.
Yeah. No, that was, I think you said it beautifully. I was worried that Trump would find enough cunning in him. Listen, I want to be clear. There is nothing that Donald Trump could ever say in any speech to undo the damage that he's done to this country, number one. But number two, is it possible for terrible people to have redemption? Yes, I believe so. So there was always the possibility that for one reason or another, Donald Trump would give a more sanitized speech. But I don't think anyone paying attention would give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he would be a changed man. We have no reason to. Our fear was that he would cynically, for just pure political reasons, give a more conventional speech and that the media would run with it. And by the way, Luke, I will say from what I've seen on Twitter, apparently Van Jones of CNN said something to the effect of that he got 2008 Obama vibes from the speech. I have no, yeah, I don't even know. No, Luke, get back here. Luke, you, baby, come back. Come on.
Focus it.
Yeah, I know.
My
We
camera's
should
out of
just end
focus
it
now.
Yeah,
There you
your
go.
camera was like, your camera was
My
just
camera's
shattered by
mad
that.
at what you just said.
Folks, that's the other thing too. Obviously, he failed to meet the moment. Most people recognize how divisive and awful that speech was. Scott Jennings of CNN is being roasted by it or about it now because he said that he read Trump's speech and he says he's ready to blow the doors off this thing and rise and meet the moment. He obviously failed. What I would encourage you all to do, especially if you're on social media, is let your voices be known. You know, write to your Congress people, you know, comment on you know, CNN feeds and, you know, and stuff like that. Let the media know that this doesn't cut it. That Donald Trump saying unity 2 times, once in minute 2 and then again at minute 532, isn't a unifying speech. And that their analysis needs to reflect it. Stop grading Donald Trump on a curve, as everything Luke said was true. That was a terrible speech. It was a divisive speech and even a boring speech. Donald Trump is usually not a boring guy, but that was quite boring. That's my analysis.
There it is. Josiah, it is always an honor and a pleasure.
Likewise,
And
Luke.
I think we did our absolute best to go through that. I'll see you all on tomorrow's show. Rather tired.
Yeah, Luke, appreciate it. Everyone, please be sure to like and subscribe. Follow every